In a strange world, everyone receives a blessing from a certain animal god upon turning 16. Today, Sophia Leela is called to the front of her class to receive hers. As she nervously shuffles forward, she silently runs through the many abilities she might gain from the animal gods, each blessing unique and powerful in its own way. When she finally reaches the front, her instructor gestures to a spread of floating cards and encourages her to pick one, explaining that it will determine which animal god will bestow their blessing upon her. Her heart pounds as she begins to panic. She silently begs not to be given any ability that would make her stand out. She'd rather receive something simple, like the mole god's gift of night vision, something that's simple and safe. Eyes shut tight, she reaches out and hopes for the best. But when she opens them, she finds the card of the gorilla god staring back at her. The next day, Carissa and her group of friends approach Sophia, curious to know which god chose her. They poke fun at her, claiming even the bird god wouldn't bother giving her a gift, or that she lacks any form of charm to be chosen by a god like the peacock. Despite their taunts, Sophia says nothing. She keeps her blessing to herself, refusing to reveal the truth. Eventually, the girls lose interest when they hear that Luis has returned to campus. They rush off to find him, leaving Sophia alone in the classroom, finally free to eat her lunch in peace. Sophia studies at a prestigious royal academy meant to educate the sons and daughters of nobles and other elite families. The school claims its mission is to mold future leaders and model citizens of the state. In reality, most students are only interested in securing their future comforts. The boys network for business opportunities. The girls hope to marry into power. Few care about the real achievement of leading the country to prosperity. Sophia, the daughter of a count from a remote and unimportant territory, holds little social value. No one tries to get close. There's nothing to gain from befriending her. She sits beneath the shade of a massive tree and pulls out her lunch, but the moment she picks up an apple, her fingers accidentally crush it with terrifying force. Her eyes widen in horror as she stares at her hand, realizing she still can't control the strength granted to her by the gorilla god. Since yesterday, she's broken everything she's touched, leading her to believe it's the newly acquired ability. Yesterday, after the ceremony, Sophia had quietly approached her instructor, revealing the card she had drawn. Upon seeing it, the instructor's eyes widened in amazement. With a reassuring smile, he told her it was a rare and powerful blessing, the gorilla god's card, one that only appeared once every 50 years. Those chosen by the gorilla god gained sudden and overwhelming combat prowess. Their strength surged to 7 times that of a normal human, and even their grip became 10 times stronger. Sophia's legs gave out and she collapsed to her knees. This was not the kind of ability she had hoped for. She never wanted to stand out and never asked for something so destructive or difficult to control. Before she could say anything more, the instructor suddenly asked her to return the next day for a private meeting. He refused to say why or provide any details, only hinting that it was important. As Sophia eats her lunch beneath the giant tree, her thoughts wander back to her instructor's sudden request. She tries to enjoy the quiet moment, but curiosity gnaws at her. A rustle above pulls her attention away. A squirrel scampers down the trunk and darts across the grass, stopping right in front of her. Its tiny eyes are fixed on her, unblinking and curious. Sophia observes its odd behavior and wonders if the little creature has had anything to eat yet. Reaching into her lunch bag, she offers some bread and gently lays it on a handkerchief before standing up. As she walks away, the squirrel doesn't touch the food. It just watches her leave, unmoving and oddly still. The day drags on, and the weight of her earlier thoughts refuses to leave her. Eventually, the final bell rings. Instead of heading home like everyone else, Sophia finds herself inside the headmaster's office. She learns what her instructor had mentioned the day before. The Royal Knights have expressed interest in her to join their ranks. Then a note is handed to her, outlining the steps she would need to take, such as the entrance exam. The headmaster speaks of duty and potential, praising the rarity of her ability. He emphasizes that the strength granted by the gorilla god is too valuable to be wasted. Historically, all known bearers of the blessing have served as knights. Internally, Sophia begins to unravel. She never wanted attention and certainly no expectations. The idea of being forced into something so public and demanding fills her with dread. She fears disappointing her family. Her mind conjures absurd consequences, like being sent to teen jail or shaming her parents on a grand scale. Despite everything, she remains composed. She accepts the information and gives the impression of willingness. Sophia quietly pleads with the headmaster to keep her ability a secret. The headmaster agrees, misunderstanding her request as a sign of humility and excitement. He even promises not to mention the Royal Knights scouting her, assuming she simply wants to reveal it once she becomes a knight. After the meeting, Sophia returns to her usual lunch spot under the large tree. The bread she left earlier is completely gone. Only the handkerchief is left with some breadcrumbs scattered on it. As she bends down to pick it up, her thoughts drift back to her conversation with the headmaster. Somehow, by a twist of luck or perhaps misfortune, she is now on the path to becoming a royal knight, one of the furthest roles from her original dream of living quietly. A new thought crosses her mind, one that will exclude her from being a knight. If she fails the entrance exam on purpose, then maybe the Royal Knights will simply turn her away. No matter how rare or powerful her ability is, surely they wouldn't accept someone who doesn't pass their tests. On the day of the exam, she makes her way toward the training grounds but struggles to find the testing center. While wandering through the outskirts, she comes across an elderly man struggling with a broken wagon. One of the wheels is missing, and he's worried about how he'll transport all the goods piled up in the cart. She hesitates. A part of her wants to help, but another part reminds her of the consequences of being noticed. Still, guilt outweighs fear. Using her enhanced strength, she begins lifting the heavy barrels with ease, startling the man. She carries the goods to the next town, and by the time she returns, she's completely lost. It's then that Louise appears. He recognizes her confusion and approaches. Sophia is stunned, not just by his sudden appearance, but by his face. It's the first time she finds herself genuinely taken aback by someone's beauty. She stumbles out an explanation and admits she's supposed to be at the Royal Knights training grounds. Louise points her in the right direction, and before she leaves, gently wipes her face. The unexpected gesture leaves her frozen in place. Louise, however, remains calm, casually wishing her luck and mentioning they'll see each other later. His words puzzle her, but she decides not to dwell on them just yet. Once she reaches the training grounds, she changes into the required sportswear and quickly realizes that she's the only girl there. Her plan to fail lingers in the back of her mind, until she notices Louise make an entrance and announce that he will be proctoring the exam. The first test begins with a simple challenge, a 100-meter dash to assess the candidate's speed. A boy named Isaac raises his voice to go first, volunteering without hesitation. From the sidelines, Louise casually observes, his sharp gaze noting the strength in Isaac's well-toned legs. The air grows tense as he prepares to run. When the signal is given, Isaac surges forward with explosive force. His body moves like clockwork, controlled, focused, fast. He finishes the dash in an astounding 9.9 seconds, drawing gasps and murmurs from the crowd. Even Sophia is impressed. With the bar set so high, she quietly readies herself for failure. Maybe this will be enough to get her dismissed. Finally, it is her turn, and she walks toward the track. A few of the examinees snicker as they notice her odd, slightly awkward starting stance. She ignores them. All she wants is to complete the race, fail, and leave unnoticed. But the moment her foot pushes off the ground, something changes. In an instant, the gorilla god's power flows through her. Her muscles tighten, her legs propel her like a cannonball, and she rockets forward at inhuman speed. Before she can even process what's happening, she's past the finish line and crashes into the wall at the far end, leaving a hole in it. Silence falls. The crowd stares, stunned. Even Sophia stands there, staring back at the wreckage, breathless from the sudden burst of strength. A quiet realization flickers in her chest. She enjoyed that moment. She released her power. The thrill makes her feel uneasy, since the gorilla's power is growing on her. The next challenge is repelling. The towering height of the tower looms even from the base, and once Sophia reaches the top of the others, the sheer drop is worse than she expected. While the group hesitates, debating who should go first, a confident boy named Eddie volunteers. He descends swiftly, even performing a stylish flip before landing safely. Sophia glances around only to find Isaac off to the side, clearly shaken. He's cowering slightly, his face pale. She approaches and he admits his fear of heights. Sophia calmly suggests they go down together, with her leading, so if anything goes wrong, she can catch him. Surprised by her willingness to help, Isaac goes up to the rope, happy to know he has found a friend in this challenge. As they make their descent, Isaac freezes again, realizing that even with Sophia, it is still scary. Suddenly, a gust of wind throws him off balance. His rope jerks violently, the safety latch snaps. Sophia's instincts kick in. She grabs Isaac mid-air, noting briefly how light he feels in her arms. But their combined weight strains the anchor, and the screws rip out of the wall. The two plunge toward the ground. Without thinking, Sophia rotates mid-fall, cradling Isaac in a protective bridal carry. She braces, absorbing the impact with a powerful crouch. Dust erupts around them as they hit the ground, but both remain unharmed. Louise watches from a distance, awestruck. Isaac tearfully thanks Sophia as whispers ripple through the training ground, praising Sophia for her bravery. Louise, regaining composure, quiets the crowd and reminds them the exam is still ongoing. He then calls Sophia over and escorts her to the infirmary. It's only then that Sophia realizes the skin on her palm is torn up. As Louise tends to her injured hand, he notes that the cuts aren't as deep as they should be, considering the weight she carried during the fall. He casually compliments her strength, mentioning that it's no surprise Isaac seems completely smitten with her after what happened. While Louise resumes cleaning the wound, Sophia takes the chance to study his face more closely. She had already thought he was beautiful the first time they met, but now with him so near, she notices the finer details, his delicate features, his long lashes, and his tall nose. He glances up, catching her silence, and assumes she's in pain, but she quickly denies feeling any discomfort. Flustered. In truth, she had simply been staring too hard, lost in thought, and now scrambled to hide her embarrassment. Her sudden awkwardness makes Louise laugh, a soft, amused sound that takes her by surprise. At that moment, she realizes he's much younger than she initially assumed. There's a lightness in his expression, a boyish charm that briefly cuts through his professional demeanor. She thanks him for his help, gently trying to retrieve her hand. But instead of letting go, he tightens his grip slightly, then covers her injured hand with both of his. The gesture catches her completely off guard. A bit uncomfortable with the way Louis gently caresses her injured hand, Sophia clears her throat and softly calls his attention. He blinks, clearly unaware of what he was doing, and quickly pulls his hands back, embarrassed. It's subtle, but Sophia catches the shift in his demeanor. His usual composure falters for just a moment, and she finds herself quietly amused by this rare glimpse of his unguarded side. However, the lightness fades when Louis begins asking about her strange strength and why she considered the night exam in the first place. Louis, realizing he might be stepping into personal territory, retracts any questions he was about to ask. He returns to his usual polite demeanor and simply offers his hand to help her stand. As they walk back to the training grounds, Sophia notices several examinees already in the middle of mock battles, swords clashing in a choreographed storm of movement. It becomes clear that while she was in the infirmary, the group had already moved on to the next part of the exam, and she had missed it entirely. Her heart jumps with a flicker of hope. Missing the test might mean she automatically fails, but that hope is quickly chased away by a pang of disappointment. If she fails, it might also mean she'll never see Louis again. She quietly scolds herself. He lives in a world far from hers. Eventually, Louis announces the end of the tests. The examinees begin to disperse, voices loud with either excitement or frustration. Sophia lingers behind, hoping for a moment of closure. Louis approaches her and offers a calm nod of thanks, acknowledging her courage during the repelling test. As if on cue, Isaac bounds over, visibly relieved to see her well. He tears up as he checks her, still feeling a sense of gratitude towards her for saving him. Louis smiles faintly and reminds Isaac to thank her properly. He also compliments Isaac's legwork, pointing out that his speed will be an asset to the Royal Knights. With that, Louis takes his leave. As Sophia and Isaac begin the walk back, she grows curious and asks about Louis. Isaac eagerly shares what he knows. Louis comes from a prestigious line of Royal Knights, many of whom have held the title of captain. It's almost a given that Louis will do the same. He has the leadership, skill, and humility to command. Despite his lineage, he's kind and grounded, earning respect from even the most elite. Sophia listens quietly. A flicker of envy forms in her chest. Isaac has such grand dreams to be like Louis, to serve with purpose. She, on the other hand, has no such ambition. Her power feels misplaced, like it was meant for someone else who has purpose in using it. Her quiet reflection is interrupted when they spot Eddie a short distance ahead. He's cornered by a group of men. Their voices are mocking, throwing cruel remarks about Eddie being the son of a mistress and unfit to be a knight. Sophia hesitates, not wanting to get involved, but her conscience weighs heavily. Eddie doesn't deserve this. She glances at Isaac, and without saying a word, they exchange a look of understanding. Together, they approach the group, pretending Eddie had agreed to walk home with them. The men laugh off the excuse, clearly unwilling to let Eddie go. Then one of them turns to Sophia and, in a reckless move, throws a punch at her. But before the blow lands, Isaac's hand flashes out and grabs the attacker's wrist midair. Isaac is absolutely furious. A fellow examinee, someone aspiring to be a royal knight, raising a hand against a girl is unforgivable. None of them notice Eddie has knocked out another man from behind, sending him sprawling to the ground. Chaos erupts. Eddie and Isaac engage the group in combat. Sophia stands back, wide-eyed and frozen, caught between awe and disbelief. One of the remaining aggressors notices her hesitation and lunges toward her. He grabs her wrists, intending to twist it painfully. But to Sophia's surprise, she feels nothing. The pressure barely registers, and without thinking, she reacts. Her body moves on instinct. With a single flick of her arm, she hurls the man across the clearing, his body crashing against a tree with a loud thud. Every eye turns to Sophia due to her amazing strength, all too stunned to continue the fight. Trying to shift the mood, Sophia quickly suggests they de-escalate. She talks calmly, trying to redirect the situation. Now walking home together, Sophia, Isaac, and Eddie share a quiet moment of reflection. It turns out the remaining men scoop up their injured friend and flee without another word. Eddie casually remarks that Sophia must be the one blessed by the gorilla god. Her feats during the exam, especially outrunning Isaac, widely known as the fastest youth in the country, had made it rather obvious. His mood then shifts to being sour as he expresses his frustration. He can't believe Sophia doesn't grasp the value of her gift. She had been blessed by one of the most powerful gods, yet she acts as if it were a burden. He starts explaining the mechanics behind the gorilla god's strength, how users gain raw power unmatched by nearly all other blessings. Despite his irritation, Eddie expresses his gratitude. Without Sophia, they might have ended up seriously hurt. Isaac, fueled by the adrenaline and his desire for friendship, officially reintroduces himself, hoping they can become close companions. While he shares the story of his blessing from the dog god, Eddie, ever reserved, chooses not to disclose his own. Sophia, hesitant, finally tells them her name and asks a single favor, that they keep her blessing a secret. Both boys agree instantly, without hesitation. When Isaac realizes they're all 16, he declares that it's fate and dramatically raises their clasped hands in celebration, declaring the start of a new friendship. Despite the warm moment, Sophia can't shake the guilt. She's still determined to fail the path of knighthood, and she knows that could mean never seeing them again. The next day, upon returning to school, the headmaster calls her in and announces that she passed the exam. Despite missing one of the trials, her performance was more than enough to secure her place. However, since she is still a student, she'll begin her night training after school hours. Later that day, as she returns to class, her teacher introduces two new transfer students. The girls in the class gasp and whisper in excitement as Isaac and Eddie walk in and introduce themselves. When Sophia spots Isaac and Eddie entering the classroom, her eyes widen in disbelief. She immediately tries to shrink into her seat, hoping to avoid being noticed. But her efforts are in vain. Isaac's eyes light up the moment he sees her, and he waves enthusiastically across the room, calling her name. She forces a small smile and awkwardly returns the gesture. Her female classmates slowly turn to look at her with narrowed eyes and hushed whispers. Just like that, she knows her quiet, peaceful school life is officially over. During their breaks, Sophia pulls Isaac and Eddie aside to a quiet corner of the school garden. She looks around cautiously before pleading with them not to tell anyone about her being a junior knight. Isaac furrows his brow, genuinely confused as to why she would want to hide something so honorable. Sophia fidgets under his gaze, unable to explain that she doesn't feel worthy of the title, not when both Isaac and Eddie are already well-liked and admired. She feels too ordinary to be associated with them, especially under the public eye. Despite his confusion, Isaac agrees and Eddie simply nods, not one to pry. As they stroll back through the courtyard, a commotion near the front gate catches their attention. A large crowd of girls gathers, whispering excitedly and craning their necks for a better look. Curious, the three try to see what the commotion is about by peeping through the crowd, until Sophia spots Louis standing casually in the middle of it all. He notices her almost instantly and calls out to her by name. A hush falls over the crowd as dozens of female eyes turn to glare at Sophia. Her heart sinks. Not even half a day and she's already drawn the ire of the entire girl population. Louis makes his way over, congratulating Sophia, Isaac, and Eddie on their successful night exam results. But before he can finish, Sophia panics and hurriedly clamps a hand over his mouth, hoping to stop him from spilling the truth. Unfortunately, she forgets to regulate her strength. Mortified, Sophia releases her hold, apologizing profusely. But Louis merely dusts himself off, amused, and asks instead about her hand injury from before. Isaac and Eddie catch up, and Louis gives the three of them a warm smile, offering his help anytime they need it. As he chats with them, Sophia's mind drifts. She had never paid attention to him before, never knowing that Louis was a senior at their school. But now she feels every stare burning into her back, especially from Carissa and her group of friends, who corner her as soon as she returns to class. Carissa wastes no time questioning her relationship with Louis, Isaac, and Eddie. Sophia tries to downplay everything, denying any closeness. But the questions keep coming, sharp and insistent. In desperation, she blurts out that Louis is in the courtyard, hoping to distract them just long enough to finally enjoy her lunch in peace. The girls rush to the windows without hesitation, eager to catch a glimpse of Louis in the courtyard. Taking advantage of the sudden distraction, Sophia quietly slips out of the classroom. She heads straight for the cafeteria, her thoughts a blur of relief and exhaustion. Finally free from the judgmental stares and endless questions, she finds a quiet corner and grabs a modest meal, just a bowl of soup and a couple of sandwiches. But her solitude doesn't last long. Isaac and Eddie spot her almost instantly and join her with their own trays filled to the brim. They grumble about the attention they've been getting since arriving at school, completely unaware that the admiration they enjoy has brought Sophia nothing but grief. While they bask in the limelight, she quietly becomes the target of envy and hostility from the other girls. Isaac notices her small meal and tries to share his food, but she politely refuses. She knows better than to draw more attention to herself, especially with the way everyone's been watching. Suddenly, the trio's curious eyes turn toward the entrance where Louis now stands calm and composed despite the commotion. He carries a brown paper bag and walks straight toward them as if he is very familiar with Isaac, Eddie, and Sophia. He greets the trio casually and takes a seat beside Sophia, completely unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, about the storm his presence stirs. Louis, cheerful and composed, talks about the upcoming induction ceremony for junior knights, unaware of the tension surrounding their table. Isaac and Eddie engage in his conversation, asking questions about what to expect, but Sophia eats in silence, shoveling down her food in hopes of making a quick escape. As soon as she finishes, she stands and makes an awkward excuse to leave the table. While Louis finds her excuse a bit abrupt, he lets her go nonetheless, wishing her well for the rest of the afternoon. Her footsteps quicken the moment she's out of sight. Part of her feels relieved to be away from the boys and the attention they unintentionally bring her. Yet another part feels disappointed, missing the chance to enjoy a moment of friendship with people who, despite everything, make her feel less alone. Before she can return to the classroom, Louis catches up to her. He hands her the brown paper bag without a word, placing it gently in her hands. He informs her that inside the bag is a single muffin that he bought for her. Louis then tells her to keep this exchange between them since he did not buy any muffins for either Eddie or Isaac. As Louis takes his leave, Sophia senses them, Carissa and the rest of the girls lurking nearby. Their eyes zero in on the paper bag like predators spotting prey. Carissa speaks, demanding an explanation of what they just witnessed. Sophia looks at the group in fear as she realizes her quiet, ordinary school life may never return to normal. During night training, Sophia's friends grow concerned as they notice she seems distracted. What they don't know is that she's still upset from a confrontation she had with Louis' fans. She didn't expect them to bother her all the way to her dorm to question her relationship with him. To keep the peace, she had come up with a story that she and Louis knew each other from childhood because their parents were acquainted. Carissa, pleased with her answer, had backed off after calling her unrefined, a comment that clings to Sophia throughout the day. Though she managed to defuse the situation, Sophia couldn't shake the insult. Her thoughts spiral over Carissa's words. She reasons that Carissa has a point as Sophia had always been messy, unusually tall, and too scrawny. And now, with the added burden of possessing the strength of a gorilla, she feels more out of place than ever. Compared to Louis, she's nothing special. The girls shouldn't even bother being jealous. Someone like her doesn't deserve his attention in the first place. Her thoughts are interrupted when the knight's attention is called. Grandmaster Ernst enters the grounds, his presence immediately commanding attention. He stands before the group and congratulates them for passing the knight exams and for their willingness to serve the kingdom. He reminds them that, as knights, they are expected to uphold a noble and refined image. Anything less would dishonor the name of the knights. The speech stirs anxiety in Sophia. Everyone around her seems proud to be part of the order, wearing their titles with pride. Meanwhile, she feels like an imposter. Her heart sinks even lower when Grandmaster Ernst calls her out for her unruly bangs, causing her to freeze in horror and embarrassment. That evening, back in her dorm, she stands in front of the mirror and attempts to fix her bangs herself. But the result is a disaster. Her attempt to clean them up results in an uneven mess, and worse, she accidentally breaks the scissors due to her uncontrollable strength. The following day, Sophia makes a trip into the royal capital to find a proper hairdresser. The plaza is alive with festivity, but she ignores the crowd, focused only on fixing her appearance. As she passes by a bakery, she pauses, momentarily distracted by a display of a strawberry tart, when a familiar voice calls out her name. She turns to find Louis, surprised to see her in the capital. Embarrassed, she quickly hides her bangs using her hands. But when he mentions knowing the area well, she asks if he can point her toward a hairdresser. Louis leads her through the city streets until they arrive at a small, unassuming salon. Sophia is taken aback by the hairdresser's rugged appearance. He looks more like a mercenary than someone who styles hair. Still, she sits down as instructed and slowly removes the scarf covering her head. The moment he sees the state of her hair, the man scolds her harshly for the uneven cut. When Sophia requests a short hairstyle, he gets irritated and turns to Louis, asking if the school party is approaching. After Louis confirms, the man tells Sophia that he'll keep her current length but fix the mess she made, trimming her bangs and cutting off the damaged parts to give her a clean, decent look. Satisfied that she's in capable hands, Louis leaves the salon since he still needs to do his patrol work. During the haircut, Sophia dozes off in the chair. When she wakes, she blinks at the mirror in disbelief. Her uneven, choppy bangs are gone, replaced by a clean, stylish cut that frames her face perfectly. Her once wild hair now falls in soft waves, and for the first time in a while, she can see her own reflection clearly. The hairdresser tells her bluntly that she has a pretty face, and that if she took a bit more time caring for her appearance, she could look absolutely stunning. Before she can fully process it, Louis re-enters the salon and immediately smiles when he sees her. He compliments the result, clearly pleased with how it turned out. As they prepare to leave, Sophia reaches into her pocket to pay for the haircut, only to be stopped by the hairdresser, who casually informs her that the bill has already been settled. She catches up to Louis, who sheepishly admits he paid for it. He explains that he feels partly responsible for her being scolded. If he had pointed out the length of her bangs during their previous meetings, maybe she wouldn't have had to struggle with it. Covering the cost is, in his eyes, an apology for failing to be a proper senior to her. As they walk through the town, Sophia begins to feel warmth bubbling beneath her initial embarrassment. Louis is considerate in a way that always catches her off guard. When they pass by the same bakery she had lingered at earlier, she notices Louis pause and glance longingly at the display window. Curious, she asks if he wants to get some cake. Louis flinches at being caught and shyly admits that he has a sweet tooth. Still, he tries not to go into bakeries too often. He says it's embarrassing being the only male customer and having people stare. Sophia, suspecting that women stare more because of his good looks than anything else, chooses not to mention it. She thinks about suggesting they go in together, a way for her to return the favor for the haircut. But the idea of being seen alone with Louis in public worries her. She can already imagine the whispers, the stares, and the potential backlash from the girls at school. Still, when she hears Louis murmur about how much he wants to try the sweets there, her hesitation melts. She pushes her fear aside and invites him, saying she wants to thank him for the haircut. The moment they sit down, Sophia notices nearly every woman in the store turning to look at them. More accurately, at Louis. She tries not to stare at herself, but when she glances at him, his calm expression, soft features, and gentle smile, she understands why he's so popular. When it's time to order, Sophia finally orders the strawberry tart she'd been eyeing since morning. But Louis surprises her by ordering an entire arrangement of desserts from the menu. He admits he wants to try everything when he notices her bewildered expression. When the sweets arrive, Sophia watches as Louis digs into his cakes with childlike delight and chooses to enjoy the rare sight of his unguarded smile. Their conversation drifts to lighter topics, and she learns that Louis isn't even aware of how admired he is. He talks about not being engaged and how he prefers to focus on his goals first, though he never says what those goals are. The lighthearted atmosphere between Sophia and Louis abruptly shifts when Louis, with casual curiosity, asks if she's been blessed by the gorilla god. Though he doesn't pressure her to respond, the question hangs in the air like a stone dropped into still water. Sophia feels a chill of hesitation but realizes this might be the best time to reveal the truth, before rumors or assumptions get ahead of her and Louis finds out under worse circumstances. She lowers her eyes to the table, unable to meet his gaze, and softly admits that she is, indeed, blessed by the gorilla god. Her voice is low, tinged with shame. She apologizes for being brutish, unfeminine, so unlike what a proper lady should be. She expects discomfort or even disappointment from Louis, but instead, he surprises her. Rather than recoiling, Louis responds with sincere admiration. He tells her that her selflessness, her willingness to help others, even at her own expense, might be the very reason she receives such a powerful blessing. His words catch Sophia off guard. He doesn't belittle her strength or question her nature as a knight. Instead, he acknowledges the challenges she'll face and expresses a quiet worry for her, knowing that the path she walks may not be easy. Still, he assures her that he'll always be her ally. Once their plates are cleared and their conversation draws to a close, the two begin walking back. Sophia lingers a few steps behind, lost in her thoughts. She tries to understand why Louis is always so kind to her. What could possibly compel someone of his status and nature to treat her, of all people, with such warmth? It dawns on her that she doesn't even know what blessing Louis has. She silently hopes it's the other combat-oriented blessing her headmaster once spoke of. If it is, then it would make her happy, because this would mean there is another person close to her that will understand her. Elsewhere, far from the quaint bakery and cobbled streets, Shin, a squad commander of the Marines, sits reviewing recruitment data. His eyes rest on Sophia's profile, studying it with uncharacteristic interest. Arshin, the flamboyant Musketeer commander, appears and notices Shin's distraction. Surprised, he comments on Shin's rare curiosity, especially since he's never shown interest in new recruits before. However, Shin continues to ignore him and continues to review Sophia's biography sheet. Back at the academy, Sophia is in motion again, this time dashing through campus to escape a small crowd of Louis' admirers. During training, Isaac complains that she didn't wait for him so they could go to practice together. Sophia apologizes, explaining that she was merely running from the students chasing her. They then notice Eddie panting and flushing and look at him confused. Eddie then tells them not to judge him since his blessing does not grant him any extra stamina. They move on to musket training. Sophia and Isaac both fumble with the unfamiliar weapon, trying to figure out its weight and mechanism. As the recruits are instructed to wear special protective vests, Arshin arrives by descending from the sky, effortlessly hovering thanks to his blessing which grants him flight. He notices the field is full of junior knights and decides to stay and observe. One by one, the trainees take their turns. Eddie quickly stands out. His aim is flawless, calm, and calculated. Arshin narrows his eyes and recognizes the boy's lineage. He's from the Fells family, renowned for their sniping prowess. The talent clearly runs deep. Then it's Sophia's turn. She grips the musket, carefully aims, and promptly snaps the weapon in half. Arshin lets out a loud laugh, entirely amused. Instead of scolding her, he walks up and tells her he already knows about her blessing, leaving Sophia stunned since only Louis, Eddie, Isaac, and the headmaster are supposed to be aware of her blessing. As the session ends, Arshin decides to put on a show. Using his flight ability, he ascends above the training field, surveying all the targets from a bird's eye view. He draws his musket with flare and fires. Every shot lands perfectly. Arshin decides to bask in everyone's awe, so he remains in the air, a confident smile on his face. He challenges the junior knights to strive for the same level of skill he has just demonstrated, encouraging them to aim for such feats once they become full-fledged knights. With those parting words, he bids them farewell and flies off to the distance. On their way back to the dorms, Isaac and Sophia both commend Eddie for his impressive marksmanship, comparing him to be on a closer level to Arshin compared to any of them. Neither of them expected him to be that skilled with a musket, and their praise, especially Sophia's, causes Eddie to flush slightly, clearly flustered but pleased. Isaac then changes the topic of their conversation by bringing up the upcoming school party with visible excitement. Sophia pauses, confused, until she remembers the hairdresser briefly mentioning something about it. When Isaac expresses his excitement to see what kind of dress she'll be wearing, her heart sinks. Panic sets in. She doesn't have a dress, and more than that, she doesn't even want to attend the party. But she keeps those thoughts to herself. Meanwhile, the commanders gather for a meeting. The topic quickly turns to Sophia. Arshian openly states his desire to recruit her into his unit, impressed by the potential of her gorilla god blessing and wanting the power in his squad. Shin, however, disagrees, arguing that someone with such raw power isn't suited for the precision-based skills required of a musketeer. The debate begins to escalate, but ultimately fizzles out and both men agree to shelve the discussion, for now, in favor of grabbing a bite to eat. Sophia stares at the brand new dress her family had sent. She had messaged her parents asking for a dress for the upcoming party, but had hoped they would send an old one she could quietly blend in with. In truth, she has no real desire to attend the event, but worries that not showing up might invite backlash from her peers. With a heavy sigh, Sophia closes the lid of the box, deciding not to wear the bright red dress. The color is too bold, too attention-grabbing, and she wants nothing more than to avoid standing out. When the night of the party arrives, Sophia stands awkwardly in a corner wearing a simple blue dress she has owned since middle school. The dress feels safe, familiar, and most importantly, forgettable. As she keeps her head down, Carissa spots her across the room. With her date in tow, she approaches, a glint of mockery already forming in her eyes. Carissa immediately recognizes the dress and points it out loudly enough for others nearby to hear. Her date, Leo Hart, politely introduces himself to Sophia, but the moment is short-lived. Carissa quickly reminds Sophia that the party is meant for those who have partners, implying that Sophia's presence without one is an embarrassment. After a few more biting comments about her outdated dress and lonely appearance, Carissa leaves, her laughter trailing behind her. Feeling utterly humiliated, Sophia turns toward the exit, regretting her decision to come. She picks up speed, desperate to disappear, but in her haste, she bumps into someone. Looking up, she sees Louis standing there, concern etched across his face. He immediately notices her teary eyes and stops her from rushing away. Sophia tries to brush it off, claiming she simply has something in her eye, but Louis doesn't seem convinced. When he insists on escorting her to the infirmary, Sophia hesitates and then confesses the truth. She was leaving because she didn't know the party required a partner. Hearing this, Louis smiles warmly. After some time, they re-enter the party, this time as partners. The entire room falls into hushed whispers, all eyes on them. Louis, ever casual, tells her that he hadn't heard about the partner rule either and is glad he found her when he did. Sophia realizes through the whispers and glances around them that although many had asked about Louis attending, no one had dared to actually invite him. They only wanted to see who he would choose. As the two chat comfortably, Carissa and her friends watch from a distance, seething. Determined to bring Sophia down, they devise a plan. Carissa's friend approaches Sophia under the guise of friendliness, offering her a drink, but accidentally dropping it at the last moment. Quick reflexes save the day. Sophia deftly catches the cup without spilling a single drop, leaving the girls stunned. Thwarted, they retreat, grumbling among themselves. Louis, having observed the entire scene, praises Sophia for handling the situation so gracefully. His compliment leaves her a little breathless, and she gathers her courage to ask why he was so serious earlier when he insisted they go back into the party together. Lowering his voice so only she can hear, Louis shares a grim piece of information. He received intel that there might be a bomb buried somewhere in the area. While it could easily be a prank, the presence of so many noble children makes it a credible threat. He explains that the knights had advised canceling the event, but the nobles had stubbornly refused, believing it to be nothing more than an empty scare. Since he is also a student, Louis explains that he, Isaac, and Eddie have already begun investigating the bomb threat. He then invites Sophia to join them in their search. Feeling a strong sense of responsibility as a junior knight, Sophia quickly agrees. Pleased by her answer, Louis offers his arm to her, explaining with a small smile that it would seem odd if partners at a party didn't link arms. Sophia freezes for a moment, nervousness rising within her. Still, she gathers her courage and shyly links her arm with his, a noticeable blush blooming across her cheeks. Together, they roam the party floor, earning curious glances from the students around them. Despite the attention, their minds remain sharp, scanning the area for anything suspicious that might hint at the location of the hidden bomb. After some time, Sophia notices a familiar, venomous gaze directed toward her, the same hateful glare she's become accustomed to receiving from many of the girls. Before she can react, Carissa approaches once again, flanked by her usual group of friends. Carissa quickly draws Louis' attention with lively chatter, hoping to distract him, while her friends move closer to Sophia under the pretense of helping her. One of the girls leans in, pretending to clean something off Sophia's sleeve, but instead of a cloth, she reveals a pair of scissors, glinting sharply under the light. Sophia catches sight of the blade but resists the instinct to defend herself. She fears that if she activates her Gorilla God blessing, she might hurt someone unintentionally. Just as the girl reaches out, Louis appears at Sophia's side in a flash. With a swift, precise motion, he slaps the scissors out of the girl's hand, making it clatter noisily to the floor. His eyes narrow in disapproval as the girl stammers out a poor excuse. Sophia quickly steps between them, trying to defuse the situation, but Louis notices that her sleeve has already been cut. As Sophia reassures him that she's unharmed, she stumbles over her own dress, the fabric tearing with an audible rip. Without missing a beat, Louis catches her in his arms, wrapping his suit jacket protectively around her shoulders. Sophia finds herself pulled close to him, cradled securely in a bridal carry. Her face burns in embarrassment, acutely aware of their intimate position as whispers and gasps ripple through the watching crowd. Without saying a word, Louis carries her out of the party hall. Once outside, Sophia grows increasingly uncomfortable, wondering how long and how far he plans to carry her. But then Louis stops, his grip tightening slightly as he mutters to himself, blaming his failure to protect her properly as a knight. Startled by his self-loathing, Sophia hurriedly insists that it was her own fault for tripping, and that he shouldn't blame himself. She reminds him that she's also a knight and should be capable of protecting herself. Louis stares at her for a long moment, then a soft smile blooms on his face. He suggests that they head into town to buy her a new dress, but Sophia panics and refuses, quickly claiming she has a spare. Back in her dorm room, Sophia pulls out the red dress her parents had sent earlier. As she unfolds it, she realizes just how extravagant it looks. A heavy feeling of regret settles over her. Sophia considers not re-entering the party, but as she thinks of how Louis defended her earlier, she feels she needs to at least show up so he won't worry about her absence. Casting her embarrassment aside, she wears the red dress and dashes back toward the party. As she heads down the stairs, she spots Leonhard, who instantly recognizes her from earlier. Sophia questions why he isn't with Carissa, and as Leonhard approaches, he admits that Carissa abandoned him to hang out with her friends. Sophia quickly thinks of ways to reunite with Louis, but Leonhard keeps her occupied, making awkward advances. When Sophia announces that she needs to leave, Leonhard places his hand on the wall beside her head, asking her to stay with him since he's now alone. Suddenly, they hear Isaac and Eddie calling her name. As they climb the stairs and spot her, Leonhard quickly retreats. Eddie and Isaac finally reach Sophia, pausing for a moment to admire how she looks in her new red dress. They then question her about the strange boy they just saw her with. Afterward, they inform her about the possible bomb planted somewhere in the school and the need to report back to Louis. Sophia tells them she already knows and that Louis should be waiting for them at the entrance of the ballroom. As she steps forward to head back, Eddie stops her, reprimanding her for returning to the party without fixing herself first. Without warning, he quickly grabs her hand and begins fixing her hair and makeup. Sophia returns to Louis, who is momentarily stunned by her new appearance but recovers quickly and escorts her back inside with Isaac and Eddie following close behind. The group draws a lot of attention, especially Sophia, as most of the students barely recognize her. Feeling shy under the growing number of stares, Sophia glances at Eddie, wondering where he learned to fix someone's hair and makeup. She recalls how he simply bunned her hair and pulled out a small makeup kit, while Isaac had looked pleased watching the transformation unfold. Now with Louis, Isaac, and Eddie surrounding her, even more people turn to look their way. It's then Sophia notices something strange. Eddie and Isaac entered the party without partners. Confused, she brings it up to the boys. They stare at her in surprise, explaining that there was never a requirement to attend the party with a partner. It was an event meant for everyone to enjoy. Realization dawns on Sophia. Carissa had lied, trying to trick her into leaving and making a fool of herself. Mortified, Sophia quickly bows to Louis, apologizing for dragging him into her troubles due to misinformation. Louis does not allow Sophia to apologize, instead assuring her with a warm smile that he genuinely enjoyed having her as his partner for the party. Isaac, quick to join the conversation, casually offers to become Sophia's partner for next year's celebration, his tone lighthearted but sincere. Across the ballroom, Carissa watches the interaction unfold, her expression darkening with barely concealed frustration as she witnesses the boys effortlessly bonding with Sophia. Her friends, whispering nervously among themselves, express their growing fear of further interfering, worried about provoking Louis after his earlier reprimand. Carissa, however, is not willing to accept defeat so easily. As her gaze sweeps over the ballroom, she notices a girl lingering at the fringes of the crowd, her eyes fixed longingly on Sophia's group. Sensing a new opportunity, Carissa's mind quickly crafts another plan, one that promises to turn the evening back in her favor. As the evening draws to a close, the knights begin to gather together and slowly relax, their earlier tension easing as they conclude that the threat of a bomb must have been a mere bluff. In the midst of this, Sophia notices Irene, one of her classmates, crouching awkwardly near the edge of the hall. Concerned, Sophia approaches her, believing the girl to be unwell. Irene, clearly distressed, hurriedly explains that she has lost one of her earrings and displays her bare ear as proof. She insists that she knows where the missing jewelry is, but admits she is too frightened to retrieve it alone. Despite the lingering duties she has as a junior knight, Sophia cannot ignore her classmates' distress and chooses to assist her. Following Aragne away from the main building, Sophia is led to an old, disused school structure, where a large wooden crate stands against the wall. Aragne explains that the crate was recently restocked under a teacher's orders and suggests that the earring might have fallen inside. Without hesitation, Sophia climbs into the crate to search, quickly spotting a glint of something shining at the bottom. However, before she can retrieve the earring, the lid slams shut behind her and the unmistakable sound of the lock clicking into place echoes in the darkness. Trapped inside, Sophia listens as Aragne, her voice shaking, confesses to being blackmailed into luring her away. Sophia remains composed, immediately understanding that Carissa must be behind the scheme. Recognizing the potential consequences for Aragne if she escapes and exposes the plot too early, Sophia makes the painful decision to stay confined until the party ends, determined to shield her classmate from further harassment. However, her plans are swiftly disrupted when unfamiliar voices drift toward her hiding place. The sounds grow louder, and she realizes with dawning horror that the crate she is trapped in is about to be moved. Her body moves as the box is lifted, and she struggles internally, torn between staying hidden or risking exposure to free herself from whatever unknown destination awaits her. As the crate shifts and jolts, Sophia holds her breath and resists the overwhelming urge to break free. She remains completely still, her body braced against the rough wood until the footsteps surrounding her finally fade. The men, unaware of her presence, set the crate down in a room on the third floor before exiting. Channeling her strength, she strikes the wooden wall with a firm, calculated punch, causing the structure to splinter and collapse into broken panels around her. The sudden rush of cool air floods her lungs, and relief washes over her now that she is free from confinement. Taking a moment to steady her breathing, Sophia moves toward the window and peers out into the quiet school grounds below. Eventually, she decides against returning to the party. If she stays hidden, Aragne won't suffer retaliation from Carissa, and she tells herself this is the best course of action. Part of her even believes that by removing herself from the event, the girls who long for Louis' attention will have their chance. Yet despite the logic behind her decision, an unshakable ache settles in her chest at the thought of missing out. Before she can linger on her feelings, a sudden rustling sound breaks her thoughts. Alarmed, Sophia stiffens and instinctively prepares herself for a possible attack. Eyes shut and shoulders tense, she braces for impact, only to open her eyes moments later and find a small squirrel by the window. Meanwhile, Isaac and Eddie begin to worry since Sophia has been missing for some time. They search the school grounds, hoping to find a clue on where she's gone. Sophia then recognizes that it's the same squirrel she had fed before, the one she had offered a piece of her bread to. A faint smile appears on her lips as she thanks the tiny creature for its unexpected company. The squirrel squeaks and gestures toward the door with its nose, seemingly urging her to leave, but she quietly explains her decision to remain. She speaks aloud, mostly of herself, saying she doesn't want her classmate to be hurt for what happened. The bomb warning, she reasons, was likely a prank and her presence is no longer essential. Even so, she finds herself admitting something more vulnerable. She confesses that she had wanted to spend more time with Louis. The squirrel climbs onto her shoulder, brushing against her cheek as if trying to cheer her up. The unexpected affection brings a soft laugh from her lips, and in that quiet moment, she speaks again, this time more honestly. She tells the squirrel how hard her friends worked to make her look beautiful tonight, how she wanted Louis to notice her, how his small gestures, the way he talks to her like she matters, brings her a kind of happiness she hasn't felt in a long time. She hates how selfish that sounds. She knows Louis probably only sees her as a junior knight, someone to guide and protect. Still, when he looks at her, something stirs inside her that she can't quite explain. But she doesn't want to be selfish and thinks this might be for the best so that other girls can talk to Louis as well. A part of her wants to monopolize his attention, which bothers her. She knows that Louis is probably just looking after her as one of his junior knights, but she can't help but feel a bit special under his gaze. A sudden burst of color illuminates the sky. The window lights up with a glow of fireworks. She watches silently, wondering who Louis might be watching the display with. Her chest tightens at the thought. She wishes she were there, next to him. Wishes she looked more elegant, more poised, more like the girls who suit him better. That longing blooms into a quiet realization that she's falling for him. The feeling unsettles her. It's raw and unfamiliar, like something too big for her to carry. But even in its discomfort, there's a strange, undeniable warmth that spreads through her at the thought of him. Perhaps this is what love feels like, messy, confusing, but also quietly joyful in its own way. Relief floods Sophia's chest as the weight of her secret feelings lifts, if only slightly. She glances at the squirrel and gently asks it to keep what she just said to itself, a shared secret between girl and creature. Her moment of peace, however, is short-lived. A strange metallic clatter echoes from somewhere deeper in the building, low but sharp enough to snap her attention away from the night sky. Her thoughts immediately flash back to the warning about the bomb. The idea that it might not have been a prank after all takes root in her mind, sending a chill down her spine. Steeling herself, she moves to investigate. The squirrel seems to sense her resolve and follows her, even leaping ahead when it notices Sophia's hesitation to enter a door left ajar. Sophia decides to enter, and inside the room appears empty at first glance, cloaked in shadows. She steps forward carefully, her senses alert. Then she hears it, a voice, low and unfamiliar, drifting from deeper within the room. She moves quietly along the wall, trying her best to conceal her presence. Hidden in the far corner, two men speak in hushed, urgent tones. Though she can't make out every word, she immediately recognizes the danger. These aren't students or faculty, they're intruders, likely the ones responsible for the threat. Sophia begins to retreat, intending to find Louis and the others, but as she moves back, her heel catches the floor with a sharp click. The sound echoes louder than she expects. The men freeze, then snap their heads in her direction. One moves quickly toward her, instinct kicking in. She reaches for a nearby pole to defend herself, but her grip, enhanced by the gorilla's blessing, crushes it instantly. As the first man lunges, she unexpectedly strikes him across the jaw with a mannequin stand, sending him sprawling. The second man draws a weapon, but Sophia reacts faster, disarming him with a swift movement and knocking the weapon away. She levels the mannequin stand at him, voice cold and commanding. With the men subdued, she drags them together and secures them with a rope using knots she learned in survival training. She interrogates the conscious one, demanding answers, but he only glares at her with defiance, declaring he will not betray their ideals. Before she can press further, the squirrel lets out a series of frantic chirps and leads her to a corner of the room. Sophia approaches and discovers a large box with a clock inside, but she realizes it's the bomb. Desperate, she begs the man to explain how to disarm it, but he merely smirks and warns her that they are willing to go down for their cause. Panic claws at her chest as she studies the device. It's nothing like the bombs they covered in training. Its structure and triggers are unfamiliar, its timer already active. She wants to call for help but realizes time is short and everyone who could assist her is too far away. Swallowing her fear, she formulates a grim plan. She turns to the squirrel and whispers for it to run. With firm hands, she lifts the box containing the bomb and stumbles toward the window. Below, the celebration continues, oblivious to the danger. She waits for the right moment when no one is looking, then leaps from the third-floor window, landing safely on the ground. She runs. Her breath comes in short bursts as she sprints across the school grounds, cradling the bomb tightly against her. Her thoughts blur with the faces of those she wants to protect, not just Louis or her friends, but every student, even those who mock or envy her. None of them deserve to suffer. No one should get hurt. Eventually, she finds a clear part of the school far from the festivities. Her chest heaves with exertion, but she doesn't stop. Clutching the device to her chest, she crouches low, shielding it with her body in a last desperate attempt to contain the blast. To her astonishment, Sophia hears a squeak by her ear. Turning her head weakly, she sees the squirrel from the abandoned building. It travels to the box in her hands, its little paws reaching the mechanism as if attempting to stop the countdown itself. The sight nearly brings her to tears. But before she can react further, the crackle and pop of distant fireworks echo in the air. As she stares up at the vibrant display of lights exploding across the sky, an idea sparks in her mind. She slowly rises to her feet despite her fears. She steadies her breath and lets the box drop in front of her. With all the power she can muster, she draws her leg back and kicks the device high into the sky. Seconds later, the bomb detonates mid-air, its blast concealed by the ongoing fireworks show. Somewhere not far away, Leonhardt catches the sight of the odd explosion and offers a knowing smirk before disappearing into the shadows. Sophia collapses to her knees, her heart pounding, every muscle in her body aching. Relief washes over her. She made it in time. Before she can gather her thoughts, she hears hurried footsteps and Isaac's voice calls out to her. He reaches her, breathless and concerned. Seeing him, a wave of emotion crashes over her and tears spill down her cheeks. Moments later, Eddie appears, equally worried. Both boys rush to her side, but she insists she's fine, though she admits that she has no strength left to stand. Without prying further, the two decide not to push her for answers. Isaac gently lifts her and carries her toward the school. Still, Eddie's curiosity gnaws at him. As they walk, he asks about her disappearance. Sophia hesitates, then tells them she saw suspicious figures enter the abandoned building and followed them, eventually discovering the location of the explosive. She leaves out the part about Araignée and Carissa, unwilling to trouble them further. Eddie quickly pieces things together, realizing the unusual firework earlier wasn't what it seemed. Sophia sheepishly admits she kicked the bomb into the sky. Frustration flashes in Eddie's eyes as he scolds her for taking such a risk alone, but she explains that the culprits are tied up in the old building. Soon after, Louis finds them. Isaac is the first to salute and relays Sophia's report. Sophia, still flustered from earlier, watches Louis with unease since she had just realized that she loves him. She steels herself and apologizes for acting independently. To her surprise, Louis doesn't acknowledge the apology. He simply tells her to rest for the night and file a formal report later. Without sparing her a glance, he instructs Eddie to escort her to her dorm and orders Isaac to submit the incident report immediately. Stunned by his cold demeanor, Sophia insists she can still help, but Louis, unyielding, cuts her off and repeats the order without emotion. As he walks away, Sophia watches his retreating figure, confusion and guilt swirling in her chest. Eddie gently urges her to rest, sensing her hurt. She casts one final look at Louis and wonders what she did wrong. She worries that after tonight, Louis may actually hate her. Once classes resume on the weekday, Sophia is surprised when Carissa and her group of friends approach her. The girls look uneasy, shifting awkwardly as they gather the courage to speak. Carissa, usually sharp-tongued and proud, struggles the most. She hesitates, fumbles over her words, and falls silent more than once. It takes a gentle nudge from Irene, who quietly encourages her with a firm look, for Carissa to finally utter an apology. Eventually, Carissa and the rest of the girls follow her lead, each offering a sincere apology. They admit that what they did was driven by jealousy and competitiveness, emotions they now recognize don't excuse their actions. They acknowledge that their prank could have led to serious consequences and express remorse for letting envy cloud their judgment. Sophia listens quietly, grateful for their honesty. She tells them that despite appearances, she and Louis aren't particularly close, it's simply been her partner that evening. The revelation leaves them momentarily confused, particularly when Sophia thanks them sincerely for playing an unintentional part in helping her discover the bomb. Carissa, unable to fully process Sophia's gratitude because she is unaware of the mission, brushes it off and instead shifts the conversation. With an easy and kind smile, she compliments Sophia, confessing that she looks stunning at the party in her red dress. She tells her to have more confidence and, in a rare show of friendliness, invites Sophia out for tea. Carissa even offers to help with her hair and makeup next time, declaring that this could be a great beginning for their friendship. Irene immediately agrees to join them, clearly delighted by the idea. For once, there's no tension between them, only a strange but welcome sense of camaraderie. Yet even as she laughs softly with the girls, her thoughts linger on Louis. She can't help but worry about how he truly feels about her now. Staring at the Knights' training grounds, Sophia takes a deep breath and squares her shoulders before stepping forward. It has been 3 months since she officially became a junior knight, and much has happened in that short time. Her most significant acts so far have been apprehending 2 members of the underground anti-monarchist group known as Daybreak. Unfortunately, those men had escaped custody under mysterious circumstances. The fact that they had even infiltrated the school to begin with remains an unsolved puzzle, leading to rumors of a possible spy embedded within the academy's noble students or even among the staff. While the thought of a traitor inside the school certainly troubles her, it's not the only weight on her mind. What unsettles her more on a personal level is the nagging feeling that Louis has been avoiding her. Since the night of the incident, the two have not exchanged a single word. In fact, she hasn't even seen him up close. This strikes her as odd, considering how frequently their paths used to cross before she realized her feelings for him. She wonders if her reckless actions that night caused him to lose trust in her. And though she doesn't regret stopping the threat, she understands why he might be disappointed. Her internal reflection is interrupted when she spots Isaac and Eddie waving her over. Isaac grins broadly and announces that today's schedule includes field training. However, Sophia and Eddie are quick to show their displeasure as they trek the snowy mountains for their training, while Isaac seems invigorated by the environment. The instructor eventually calls for a break to explain their objective. They will be surviving overnight in the harsh wilderness, testing both their endurance and their preparedness. Sophia happens to catch sight of Louis standing a few feet away, listening quietly. The moment he notices her looking in his direction, he turns his head away, focusing solely on the instructor's words. As the team continues onward, many begin to grumble about their heavy packs. Even Sophia starts to feel her muscles ache with each step. When she glances behind her, she sees Eddie falling further and further behind. Concerned, she offers to carry part of his load, but he stubbornly refuses, insisting that he's fine. Eventually, the group is forced to travel in single file, now navigating a narrow path clinging to the side of a steep ridge. It's then that Eddie suddenly collapses, his body giving out under the strain. Sophia reacts quickly, catching him just in time to prevent a fall that could have sent him tumbling down the mountain's edge. Clinging desperately to the icy rock wall, she strains to keep them both from slipping. However, her hand slips, and with a final burst of strength, she throws Eddie upward. Isaac, startled but quick to act, reaches out and grabs him. Sophia, however, plummets into the dense forest far below. Louis decides to jump in right after her. When Sophia regains consciousness, the sky is streaked with the colors of sunset. Her body aches, but she is alive. The natural blessings of the gorilla have saved her once again. She realizes the best course of action is to find shelter for the night and regroup with her squad later, especially with darkness setting in quickly. As she walks away from the site of her fall, determined to find safety, she fails to notice that a few essential items from her bag were left behind. Luckily, Sophia finds an abandoned cabin hidden between the trees. She surveys the area cautiously, noting that it's still intact and likely the best place to stay for the evening. Setting her things down by a dry corner, she exhales and quietly thanks the gorilla's blessing again for helping her survive. But the thought lingers, weighing heavier by the second. She wouldn't even be in this situation if she hadn't received the gorilla's power in the first place. She rummages through her bag in search of tools to make a fire, but quickly realizes that they're missing. She assumes they must have fallen out during her descent. She debates whether to go out and search for them, but the sky has already dimmed and the cold bites harder. It might be too dangerous to wander now. Just as she weighs her options, a sudden noise echoes through the walls, something wooden striking the floor. Her body freezes. Her mind races, imagining a bear or worse, some lingering ghost haunting the old cabin. She shakes her head and forces herself to calm down, reminding herself that whatever's outside might just be another person like her, lost and cold. After a moment's hesitation, she approaches the door and cautiously opens it, only to find no one. For a split second, the fear creeps back in, whispering that the sound truly did belong to a ghost. But as she lowers her eyes, she spots a small figure curled up nearby. It's a squirrel, unconscious, motionless, and near it is a tiny pack. Inside the pack, to her disbelief, are the very tools she needs to start a fire. She hurries to light a fire and wraps the squirrel with some cloth from her bag. Once the warmth spreads through the cabin, she settles near it and gently observes the tiny creature. Something about it feels familiar. Its fur, its face. She begins to wonder if it's the same squirrel that sometimes follows her at school. As the heat and exhaustion settle into her bones, her eyes grow heavy. The tension slowly fades and she slips into sleep. By the time she wakes, the fire has softened into embers. A strange comfort surrounds her, and there's an unfamiliar but comforting scent in the air. She sits up slowly, realizing the fire is about to die, and decides to add some wood. But as she glances to the side, her breath catches. Louis is there, sleeping right next to her, wrapped only in a thin blanket. Sophia jolts back, pressing herself against the cabin wall, her heart thundering. For a brief moment, she wonders if she died in her sleep, and this is the final comfort her mind has given her. But the longer she stares, the more real it feels. Then his eyes open, and he assesses her. Suddenly, realization dawns on him as well. He quickly tightens the blanket around himself and turns away, sitting up, clearly embarrassed. Sophia, still stunned, hears him request something politely and immediately dashes out to look for his belongings, which he claims are near the cabin. She finds them, his clothes and weapons, damp from the snow but intact. She returns and hangs his garments by the fire to dry. After a few more moments of awkward quiet, they finally face each other again. Sophia, still hesitant, asks how he ended up here with her. Louis explains, keeping his voice even, that he had seen her fall and jumped in after her. Unfortunately, he had landed elsewhere and had been searching the woods for her. Suddenly overwhelmed with embarrassment, Louis decides now is the best time to tell Sophia the truth about his ability. Without warning, he offers a quiet apology in advance, and then vanishes from her sight. Sophia blinks, stunned, her eyes fixed on the space where he once stood. For a moment, nothing happens. Then she notices the small squirrel poke its head out from the blanket, the same one she had rescued the night before. Her expression shifts to one of disbelief as realization dawns. Moments later, Louis reappears, slowly returning to his human form. He quickly dresses, not meeting her gaze at first. After a pause, he begins to explain. He reveals that he was granted the blessing of the squirrel god. Normally, such a blessing would have simply enhanced his agility or reflexes. But for reasons unknown to him, it allows him to fully transform into a squirrel. However, the duration of his transformation is unpredictable, and at times he finds himself adopting the behaviors of a squirrel without meaning to. He tells Sophia that he used his ability to search for her last night, and that he was the one who found her lost supplies. Unfortunately, just as he reached the cabin in his squirrel form, exhaustion overtook him. He passed out and involuntarily returned to his human form later in the evening. Sophia, still trying to process everything, finally asks why he had decided to endanger himself, especially when she had assumed, after everything, that he now resented her for acting without orders. Louis realizes that he has caused a huge misunderstanding and slowly admits the truth behind his actions. On the night she was trapped in the old school building, he had already found her. He had been with her the whole time in squirrel form. He was the one who stayed by her side, the one she shared her bread with. The realization hit Sophia like a wave. Every squirrel she had grown to form a connection with had been Louis all along. And if that were true, then he had heard her confession, the one she made when she thought no one else could hear. A flood of dread rushes in, but Louis, seeing the panic on her face, speaks before she can react. He apologizes earnestly, assuring her that it had never been his intention to eavesdrop. He had only wanted to find her that night. His voice softens as he covers his reddening face with one hand and admits that her words had caught him completely off guard. It was the first time anyone had ever told him they loved him. Sophia stares at him in disbelief. She can't imagine how someone as admired as Louis could think that. After all, she's seen how many girls try to get close to him, but quickly realizes Louis just does not see the extent of his popularity. Louis continues, explaining that after hearing her confession, he had originally planned to leave her alone. But when he realized she wasn't alone in the building, he stayed. That decision ultimately led him to discover the bomb. His voice grows quieter as he recounts how terrified he felt when he saw Sophia about to take the blow of the explosion only to brilliantly save the school. He was completely amazed and grateful for her that evening. Even so, he couldn't bring himself to face her afterward. He had admired her courage, but the weight of everything, her confession, his failure to help, and the danger she had faced alone, left him uncertain. And so, instead of acknowledging what had happened, he distanced himself. Right after Louis finishes his story, he looks her in the eye and admits that he loves her. It was only when he saw her fall from the cliff that he realized just how strongly he felt. He gets up from his place on the floor and approaches her, revealing that he had always felt an attraction toward her. But the more he got to know her, the more he fell in love. Gently cupping her face with his hands, he pours out his feelings, shyly admitting that he feels bad for waiting until she confessed first. Even if she didn't know it was him as a squirrel. He notices that Sophia suddenly looks a little sad and begins to worry that she's about to reject him. But when she looks up again, she announces that she loves him too. Gathering her courage, Sophia confesses just how long she's had feelings for him, since Louis had been honest with her as well. She also admits how much it hurt when he began avoiding her after the incident. Recalling the pain of that time brings tears to her eyes. She even admits that she even felt regret for loving him since it brought so much heartache. Louis quickly pulls her into an embrace, apologizing for taking so long to realize his feelings and for hurting her in the process. He tells her that he was afraid of being rejected, afraid that maybe she didn't truly love him, or that her words had been said in a moment of confusion. Pulling away, Louis begins to lean in to kiss her, only for Isaac to suddenly burst through the front of the cabin, tearing down part of the door in the process. Shocked and flustered, Sophia pushes Louis off her in a panic. As she regains her composure, she turns to Isaac and asks how he found her. Isaac casually says that he used his dog blessing to track her via scent. Sophia finally calms down until Isaac gestures toward the side of the cabin. Only then does she realize what just happened. She glances to the side, and to her horror, she sees Louis outside the cabin, lying in the snow, cushioned by a fresh pile from where he crashed through the wall. Sophia quietly curses the strength granted to her by the gorilla god, worried that she may have just seriously injured the person she loves. In an undisclosed ruin buried deep beneath crumbling archways and moss-covered stone, Lloyd and Keith kneel before their superior. The two men responsible for planting the bomb at the school receive praise from Leohart, their true commander all along. A sly smirk plays on Leohart's face as he is clearly pleased with their work. The chaos they stirred is only the beginning. Taking down the noble academy, he muses, will be a challenge worthy of his time. Several weeks after the incident in the snowy mountains, Sophia and the others settle back into the rhythm of school life. Today, she strolls through the academy's courtyard, grateful for a break from night training. The winter air is crisp, the sun soft against the stone pathways, and for the first time in a while, peace lingers. That peace is quickly interrupted when Isaac calls out to her, rushing toward her with a small tree cradled in his arms. He pants slightly as he explains that the dorm sent him on errands to the royal capital, and he hurried back. Noticing her puzzled look, he invites Sophia to help him throw a Christmas party. Most students have already left the dorms to spend the holidays with their families. Still, a number remain, so Isaac hopes to lift their spirits with a celebration. They step into the dining hall, which is already abuzz with activity. A few students hang festive decorations, others prepare food and drinks. Eddie greets Sophia and hands her a shiny red ornament, asking her to help decorate. She smiles and joins in. As the party starts to come together with everyone working on completing the dining hall for the party, Louis suddenly enters. He walks in holding a neatly boxed cake. A chorus of admiration ripples through the room as several girls swarm him, complimenting his perfect timing and kind gesture. From a corner of the room, Sophia, Isaac, and Eddie share knowing smiles as they have grown accustomed to Louis' popularity. Sophia's heart skips as her gaze lingers on Louis. When he notices and offers a bashful smile, her cheeks flush. She remembers, clearly, the night they both confessed their feelings. The warmth in her chest gives way to a rush of nerves. The girls surrounding Louis are clearly enchanted by him. If word got out about their feelings for each other, she'd be a social pariah. Trying to flee before he notices, she quietly slips out into the hall, but Louis catches up. They try to converse normally despite their racing hearts, but an awkward silence falls on them as they run out of things to say. Louis finally speaks, apologizing for not acting properly around her. The words confuse her until he steps closer and wraps his arms gently around her. Sophia stiffens at first, remembering how she accidentally tossed him out of cabin. But this time she stays. The embrace is warm, steady, and safe, and for a moment, she lets herself simply feel it. Eventually, Sophia pulls away from the embrace, and Louis' eyes search hers for an explanation. Sophia tries to say something, anything, but the words catch in her throat. Before she can recover, a small group of girls spots Louis and rushes over, calling his name and dragging him away to chat. The party officially begins as students gather around the decorated hall. Laughter and chatter fill the air, and the scent of baked sweets and warm drinks floats by. Louis remains surrounded by admirers, their conversation light and lively. From her spot near the back, Sophia quietly eats her modest meal alone. Eddie eventually approaches, eyeing her plate with mild concern. He jokes about how little food she has, then softens his voice and hands her a small box meant for her from him. Inside is a delicate hair accessory, simple but elegant. Sophia smiles, touched by the gesture. Eddie explains that he noticed she always ties her hair during training and thought it would suit her. It's also his way of saying thank you for saving him during the mountain training. He hesitates for a moment, cheeks tinged pink, and adds that there are other reasons for the gift, but refuses to elaborate as Sophia's curiosity perks up. She thanks him warmly, and Eddie, clearly flustered, excuses himself from the table. With her plate finished, Sophia takes it to the washing station. A hint of guilt lingers. She hadn't had a real chance to speak with Louis. Her eyes drift to the dessert table, where rows of cakes sit untouched, and an idea sparks in her mind. Just then, Isaac approaches, his usual energy more subdued. He checks in to see how she's enjoying the party. When she nods, he fidgets slightly, gripping a bag he's been hiding behind his back. After a deep breath, he invites her outside for a moment of privacy. Out on the patio, Isaac thrusts the bag toward her, cheeks burning red. She accepts it without hesitation and opens it to find a soft, white knitted scarf inside. It's cozy, simple, and undeniably thoughtful. He explains that he's always admired her quiet strength. Even during the knighthood exam, when they were climbing down the tower, he could tell she was scared, but she stayed brave for his sake. That courage gave him the strength to keep going. Taking the scarf from her hands, Isaac gently wraps it around her neck. He tries to confess his feelings but stumbles, unable to get the words out. As he starts again, a loud thud cuts him off. A bucket falls from above and lands squarely on his head. The teacher who dropped it shouts an apology from a balcony, and Isaac awkwardly assures him that he's fine. Sophia giggles softly, her laugh like chimes in the winter breeze. When the moment settles, she thanks Isaac for the gift, adding with a gentle smile that it's nice to receive something from a friend. As Sophia rushes back inside, Isaac and the teacher know that he has just missed the chance to confess to her. Meg falls, casting a peaceful stillness over the academy grounds. Back in her dorm room, Sophia stretches and lets out a contented sigh. The party went well, better than expected. She had fun. She even received thoughtful presents from her friends, something she hadn't expected at all. She starts thinking about what to get them in return, but her thoughts naturally drift to Louis. Despite everything, she hadn't spoken to him much during the party. He was constantly surrounded, and she never got the chance. A pang of disappointment settles in her chest, but she quickly brushes it off. Her thoughts are interrupted by a soft knock on her door. Confused, she rises to open it, and nearly jumps in surprise when she sees Louis standing in the hallway looking uncertain. Her eyes widen in panic, and she quickly glances around the corridor to make sure no one sees him before yanking him inside and shutting the door behind him. It's only then that the reality that Louis is in her room sets in. Sophia freezes, unsure what to do next. Sensing her unease, Louis offers to leave, but Sophia shakes her head, assuring him he's fine and that he can speak freely. Without another word, Louis reaches into his coat and hands her a small box. It's wrapped neatly, and inside is a delicate necklace, silver, with a tiny red ruby at its center. Sophia gasps softly, not believing such a beautiful piece of jewelry is being given to her. Louis admits that he had wanted to buy her a ring at first, but an upperclassman advised him against it, though he's still unsure why. Sophia realizes that Louis likely doesn't know the full implications of giving a ring to a girl. Still, his fidgeting and shy glances toward the necklace give away how nervous he is. To ease his nerves, she puts it on immediately. The ruby glints against her collarbone, and Louis smiles in relief, quietly noting how perfectly it suits her. He begins to excuse himself, but Sophia gently tugs on his sleeve. She explains that she has something for him too, cake she had set aside at the party, hoping to share it with him. Since she didn't get the chance earlier, this moment feels perfect. Louis lights up, gladly accepting the plate and digging in. He comments that not many people know how much he loves sweets. Only around her does he feel free enough to enjoy them without fear of judgment. Finally relaxing, Sophia thanks him for the necklace, but admits she feels guilty not having a real gift for him. Louis reassures her that the cake is more than enough. However, seeing that she is still wearing a troubled expression, he offers her a bite, saying that if she lets him feed her this one bite, they can call it even. Flustered, Sophia hesitates, but his expression is so eager and kind that she relents, leaning in for a bite. The sweetness of the cake lingers on her tongue, made even more special by the fact that Louis fed it to her. He smiles again, softer this time, and tells her that he's happy he could share this side of himself with her. Other boys once told him that liking sweets wasn't manly. Ever since then, he'd hidden that part of himself out of fear of ridicule. Sophia frowns at that, then firmly tells him that he should be allowed to love whatever he likes. He shouldn't be ashamed of something that brings him joy. Feeling a sense of fondness at her words, Louis quickly envelops her in another hug, admitting through his embrace that he had feared ending the day without speaking to her. Sophia listens quietly, then assures him that none of it was his fault. He had to speak to a lot of people, and it's only natural for someone as popular and important as him to be surrounded by others. Louis then hesitates before wondering aloud if Sophia would have a problem with him speaking to other people, especially girls. In response, Sophia leans in closer, gripping him slightly tighter. She silently confesses that she does want to monopolize his attention, but knows she can't do that. Louis is someone admired by many, and she understands that she can't keep him away from everyone. Still, the thought of sharing his attention stings, even if she buries it beneath logic. Louis, moved by her honesty, suddenly suggests that they make their relationship public. The idea catches Sophia off guard, and she furiously shuts the suggestion down. Panic flashes through her thoughts. She's not ready for that. She's afraid of what others might think. If people found out, it could ruin her already fragile social standing. For now, she wants to keep their relationship a secret, just between them. Teasingly, and without warning, Louis grabs her by the waist and lifts her onto his lap, clearly enjoying her reaction and the closeness they now share. Despite the playful move, his expression shifts to something more serious. He confesses that he's been worried about hiding their relationship, especially since he's aware boys might be after her affection as well. Sophia blinks in confusion, thinking back to the party. As far as she knows, the only boys who talked to her were Eddie and Isaac. Both just wanted to give her gifts. She even mentions that she plans to return the gesture when she finds the time. Louis then offers to join her on her shopping trip, wanting to buy similar presents that Eddie and Isaac had gotten her. The statement confuses her since she didn't think Louis would have wanted a hair accessory and scarf, especially with his short hair. However, the grip on her waist makes her realize that Louis is genuinely concerned about losing her. To reassure him, she softly reminds herself and him that she couldn't possibly fall in love with anyone else. Only Louis. Her heart belongs to him. Moved by her words, Louis loosens his grip so she can turn to face him. With quiet intent, he suggests they make a vow tonight, asking if it's finally okay for them to share a kiss. Sophia stares at him nervously, then gives a shy nod. When he leans closer, she doesn't pull away. Their lips meet in a soft, lingering kiss, their first. The room is quiet, the world outside momentarily forgotten. When they part, Sophia looks at him lovingly, but Louis suddenly grows shy. She tries to stand flustered, but stumbles. Louis catches her just in time, and the two tumble back onto the couch, Sophia now lying beneath him and Louis hovering above. They freeze, realizing the position they've ended up in. After realizing the position they are in, Louis is the first to pull away. Flustered, he quickly rises and rushes toward the door, keeping his back to her. In a quiet, almost apologetic tone, he mutters an apology, both for pulling her too hard earlier and for arriving at her room unannounced. His hand hovers near the doorknob, unsure whether to say more. Before stepping out, he glances over his shoulder and gives her one last gentle smile. He casually invites her to visit his room someday, then slips out before she can react. Even after he leaves, Sophia remains frozen, staring at the closed door in disbelief. Her heartbeat still echoes in her ears as she recounts what happened between them tonight. The following morning, Arshant spends his rare day off lounging by the fountain in the center of the castle town. A dull ache pulses through his head, remnants of his drinking spree with Victor the night before. He groans, wondering how he even managed to down so many jugs of ale. Regret hits him like a wave. It's just his luck to feel sick when he actually has free time. As he sits up and stretches his legs, a girl who recognizes him as a knight approaches, a bit shy but smiling. She offers him a glass of water, having noticed that he doesn't look well. Arshant blinks at her kindness, about to accept it, when he notices more girls gathering around, chatting and trying to catch his attention. He chuckles lightly, offering them his usual charming smile, and thinks to himself how amazing and unpredictable girls can be. But his attention is soon stolen when a flash of red passes through the square. He turns just in time to spot Sophia running by, clad in her knight's uniform. His mood shifts in an instant. Recognizing her as the girl blessed by the gorilla god, Arshant spreads his wings and lifts off without hesitation, politely excusing himself from the crowd of girls. From high above the rooftops, he watches Sophia move through the town. She isn't just patrolling, she's helping. Whether it's assisting an elderly vendor with heavy crates or offering to play with the town children, she's approachable and kind. Arshant had imagined someone with the gorilla god's blessing would be wild or brutish. Yet Sophia's calm, sincere presence feels nothing like that. Still, his doubts vanish the moment he sees her respond to a commotion near a tavern. Apparently, some unruly patrons were turned away and are causing trouble. Arshant prepares to intervene, but in the blink of an eye, Sophia handles it. By the time he opens his eyes again, the men are on the ground, tossed out, and the tavern owner is thanking her profusely. Watching from above, Arshant chuckles. Maybe she's a bit wild after all. As the day continues, Sophia escorts an elderly lady down the road. She stops briefly by a bakery, gazing thoughtfully at the cakes displayed in the window. Arshant decides to finally make his presence known. From his perch above the rooftops, he calls out to Sophia midair, his wings spread wide in an impressive display meant to exaggerate his size and presence. He descends with practiced ease and lands right in front of her, startling her slightly. As he glances behind her, he notices where her attention had been, right at the cakes displayed in the bakery window. He casually asks if she likes sweets. Sophia hesitates, then shakes her head, saying she's not too fond of them. But she admits she was thinking of someone she knows who likes them. She hopes to bring that person there one day. Sensing an opportunity to continue the conversation, Arshant suggests they go inside and try the cakes. He tells her she can treat it as a sort of rehearsal for when she eventually brings that friend. Sophia, clearly flustered, declines the offer, saying it wouldn't be proper since Arshant is her superior officer. It would feel wrong to her. Still teasing, Arshant proposes to make it an order instead just to see what she would do. Sophia is caught off guard, struggling to come up with another excuse. Seeing her squirm, Arshant gives her a lighthearted smile and admits that he's just messing with her. Just as she turns to resume her patrol, Arshant calls out one more time. With a strangely casual tone, he asks her, hypothetically, if she would accept his invitation if he asked her as a boyfriend instead. Sophia stops in her tracks, visibly stunned by the question. The hesitation on her face is plain. Before she can come up with an answer, Arshant brushes it off with a chuckle and tells her he's just joking. Later, perched silently on another rooftop, Arshant watches her from a distance. Something about her refusal unsettles him more than he expects. He frowns slightly, confused by the discomfort growing in his chest. Hoping to shake off the strange emotion, he decides to fly around. On another day, Isaac dreams vividly of Sophia. In his dream, he's standing beside the town fountain when she appears, calling out his name. She's wearing the scarf he gave her, looking adorable and full of warmth. She runs to him and throws her arms around him in a hug, unintentionally knocking him back with her strength. She quickly apologizes, but Isaac only laughs, cheeks red as he tells her it's fine. He then offers to continue their date, taking the lead with quiet confidence. He brings her to a dress shop first. Sophia emerges a few minutes later wearing a soft blue dress adorned with flower patterns at the skirt. She shyly asks how she looks and Isaac, captivated, instantly pays for it. They walk through the streets and enjoy a meal together. They even stop to pet some puppies along the way. Their laughter echoes as they explore the quiet corners of the town together. As the sun sets, they end their day at a scenic overlook, gazing at the town below. Sophia smiles and admits how happy she is, especially since Isaac is her boyfriend. She leans up, eyes closed, lips ready for a kiss, only for Isaac to be yanked back into reality as Eddie's annoyed voice pierces through the dream, driving him away from his moment. When Eddie notices Isaac grinning to himself, he raises a brow and questions the odd look on his friend's face. Isaac nervously scratches the back of his neck and mutters that he's just remembering a particularly amazing dream he had the night before. He adds with a playful glint in his eyes that the dream is a secret. Eddie, however, looks completely uninterested. Feeling slightly ignored, Isaac pouts and playfully accuses Eddie of daydreaming too. He tries to get Eddie to open up about his own daydream, but Eddie looks away, gaze turning distant as he's suddenly reminded of a quiet moment from earlier that week. In that memory, he had been sitting alone in the academy courtyard, a stray cat curled up and napping peacefully on his lap. The scene had been so still, he almost hadn't noticed Sophia approaching. When she did, her eyes immediately landed on the cat. She crouched down beside him, clearly fascinated, and asked if she could pet it. Eddie told her she could since the cat was used to humans, but to his surprise, she refused, saying she was scared she might hurt it. When he asked if she liked cats, she replied without a moment of hesitation that she loved them. The sincerity in her voice had stunned him. Curious, she asked why he was sitting out there alone. He awkwardly admitted that he was hiding from the girls in class who wouldn't stop calling out to him. She gave him a knowing look that made his chest feel uncomfortably warm. Even now, just thinking about it made his ears burn. He quickly shakes the thought away, choosing not to share the memory with Isaac. He knew if he did, Isaac would never stop pestering him. Realizing Eddie wasn't going to spill anything either, Isaac sighs and drops the topic. Instead, he suggests they leave the sauna and rest by the pool for a while. Eddie agrees and the two head over to the lounge chairs, letting the cool air wash over their heated skin. Eventually, they bring up Sophia, guessing that she's probably still out in the capital. Knowing her, she will probably stay till the evening since she loves helping the townspeople a lot. They both agree, almost simultaneously, that she's a genuinely great girl. Isaac stares off for a moment and begins to wonder aloud if Sophia might already like someone. Eddie grunts in response, clearly not interested in getting into that conversation. But Isaac nudges him again, asking if he's noticed anything, and he signs. Eddie, now visibly annoyed, shrugs and tells him to drop it. Meanwhile, as the sun begins to dip behind the horizon, Clarissa and her group, now including Araignée, walk down a cobblestone path on their way back to the dorms. Their shopping trip had taken up most of the day, and it had been all for Araignée, or so Clarissa claimed. She had insisted on dressing her up in something less frumpy and more flattering, convinced that Araigné didn't know how to highlight her natural features. Araigné, however, looks uncertain as she recalls the last dress Clarissa had her try on. She frowns, unsure if it suits her. But Clarissa is already walking ahead, clearly irritated. She mutters to herself about how Araigné never trusts her fashion sense and has zero confidence. In her heart, though, she knows Araigné is already beautiful. She just hides it under layers of insecurity and bland clothes. Clarissa turns back and reminds Araigné again, a bit more firmly, that the whole outing was meant for her. As the group continues to browse the stores, their conversation turns to Sophia. They recall how she declined their invitation earlier in the week, saying she was busy. Clarissa had hoped to help Sophia with her fashion as well, and had been a little disappointed. But before they can continue the conversation, they reach a corner and stop in their tracks when they come face to face with Sophia, who is effortlessly carrying an elderly man on her back. They stay with her till Sophia drops the man off. They talk to her regarding her knighthood and learn that Sophia had simply wanted to keep it a secret to maintain her peaceful school life. Despite Sophia's request to keep it a secret, Clarissa couldn't help but voice her confusion over Sophia's decision to keep her role as a knight hidden. She tells her bluntly that being a knight is something to be proud of, noble, respectable, and admirable. The others around them nod in agreement, echoing Clarissa's sentiment. Even Araigné, usually more reserved, speaks up, saying that Sophia worries too much about what others might think, when in truth, she has nothing to be ashamed of at all. Araigné then admits she understands how Sophia feels, perhaps not entirely, but enough. She confesses that she too used to be anxious about revealing her true self, but ever since she started being more open and honest, she noticed that more people began talking to her. She never imagined she'd enjoy something as simple as a shopping trip with friends, but now here she was, feeling like she truly belonged. Looking at Sophia with gentle eyes, Araigné tells her she sees no reason to hide something as inspiring as being a knight. Seeing her in uniform, confidently helping others, made her look cool, someone anyone could rely on. Clarissa quickly adds her own perspective, saying she could never understand people who act differently just to please others. She prided herself on being honest all year round and didn't see the point of hiding one's identity. Sophia still looks uncertain, but as she glances at the girls around her, a faint smile begins to form on her face. She feels lighter, comforted by their words. For the first time in a while, she felt seen, not as a knight or a blessed girl, but as a friend. Her eyes well up with tears, and she quietly thanks them for their support and encouragement. Not wanting to let the moment grow too emotional, Clarissa suddenly changes the subject, asking Sophia if there are any handsome boys among the knights their age. Sophia, caught off guard, nods and admits that many of them are quite attractive. Most knights keep fit, after all. The girls immediately swoon and chatter excitedly at the idea. Then Sophia, still puzzled, turns to Clarissa and asks if Leonhard is her boyfriend, since they attended the school party together. Clarissa waves the idea away, saying she had only met him that evening and accepted his offer to be her partner because he was handsome and polite. Before the conversation can go further, Clarissa suddenly declares that she's going to find a dress for Sophia now that they're all together, and darts off to the nearest boutique. The others follow close behind, laughing. Araigné and Sophia exchange amused glances, smiling as they admire the group's energy before running to catch up. One day, all the knights gather at the bustling port town for the annual military arts competition. The air buzzes with energy as knights from various divisions prepare to face off. Eddie and Isaac are at the side, discussing the mechanics of the competition, especially since Eddie isn't familiar with how it works. Isaac explains that the ground forces, maritime squad, and musketeers all compete against each other to see which group has improved most through training. Meanwhile, the junior knights are split among the three based on their divine blessings to keep the matchups fair and balanced. However, Sophia is the only one exempt from the competition. Instead of competing, she'll be assisting the event as part of the first aid response team. Apparently, all three divisions had argued over which one would get to have her on their team, so in the end, it was decided to remove her from the competition altogether to avoid further conflict. At the thought of Sophia tending to injuries, Isaac grinned and excitedly promised to get himself hurt just so she'd come running to help him. Before they can argue further, they hear a familiar voice call out. Turning toward the sound, they spot a nearby boat where Clarissa and her group of friends are loudly cheering for Sophia to do her best in training. Isaac enthusiastically waves back at the girls, clearly energized by their presence. The junior knights are soon assigned to their respective teams. Eddie ends up with the ground forces, Isaac joins the maritime squad, and Louis is placed with the musketeers. Sophia catches Louis' eye and gives him a silent, encouraging smile. Louis, seeing her support, returns a soft smile of his own. The first event is the obstacle course. Isaac darts ahead of his competition with ease, using his blessing to give him a head start. Driven by the desire to impress Sophia, he rushes forward, only to halt at the challenge, a tall stone wall. He pauses, trying to figure out the best way to scale it, which allows Victor, blessed by the wolf god, to overtake him. Victor expertly climbs the wall with fluid agility and blazes through the rest of the course, ultimately winning the round for the ground forces. By the time Isaac catches up, Victor is already walking back to him, complimenting his strong legs, and invites him to join his squad once he graduates into a full knight. Next up is the swimming event. Both Eddie and Isaac quickly opt out, admitting they're terrible swimmers. Even Sophia confesses her lack of skill in water. Apparently, gorillas aren't known for their swimming ability. However, when Isaac notices Louis entering the event, Sophia's attention immediately shifts. Her cheeks flushed red at the sight of him in swimwear, clearly not used to seeing her boyfriend in that state. Isaac chuckles, predicting that the maritime squad will easily win, but Eddie points out that their commander, Shin, isn't participating. He's still in full uniform. Isaac wonders aloud if Shin just can't swim, returns him a mild scolding from Eddie. Meanwhile, Shin stands at the dock, casually gazing at the fish in the water. At the edge of the competition grounds, a knight named Gilbert approaches Louis, his expression unreadable but clearly appraising. He's heard the talk how Louis is considered the most promising among the junior knights, someone already on the way to becoming a full-fledged member of the order. Gilbert wants to see for himself if the praise is warranted. As he looks Louis up and down, he quickly concludes that the younger knight isn't impressive. In fact, Gilbert finds him underwhelming. A hint of disdain creeps into his gaze as he decides to prove a point in the upcoming swimming event. When the whistle blows, the swimmers launch into the water with explosive force. Gilbert immediately surges ahead, cutting through the waves with brutal efficiency. His strokes are powerful and unrelenting, bolstered by the strength of his Orca blessing. The distance between him and the others grows rapidly, and it becomes obvious that he's going to take the win. Louis, despite his strong effort, finishes second, a respectable result, but far behind Gilbert. Sophia stands at the edge of the competition area, fulfilling her role in the first aid squad. She steps forward and offers a towel to Gilbert. Gilbert halts, stunned to find a girl, especially one in a knight's uniform, waiting for him. His eyes narrow as he tries to make sense of it. As he tries to make sense of her presence, he briefly admits to himself that she's attractive, but that only fuels his confusion. His gaze hardens, and Sophia senses the shift in his demeanor. There's something uncomfortable in his stare, judgmental, maybe even hostile. Unnerved, she presses the towel into his hands and quickly backs away, murmuring an apology as she turns to leave. She makes her way to Louis instead. He accepts the towel with a grateful nod, relieved to see her. Though clearly disappointed in his performance, his expression remains calm. Sophia offers a few words of encouragement, but is interrupted by Gilbert's mocking tone as he insults Louis. He positions himself deliberately close, clearly trying to overshadow Louis. But before the tension can build further, Shin's voice cuts through the air. The maritime commander doesn't raise his tone, but his words carry unmistakable authority. Gilbert stiffens, then wordlessly returns to the waiting area. Isaac and Eddie witness the exchange and are impressed by the control Shin holds over Gilbert. The next round is close-quarter combat. As the round begins, the competitors receive rifles loaded with colored clay bullets. The rules are simple. The last team standing wins. Arshit wastes no time taking to the sky, his wings giving him a dominating advantage. He moves swiftly, eliminating targets from above with practiced ease. Eddie keeps to the ground, hugging the tree line. He knows Arshit is dangerous and isn't willing to take chances. He fires only when he's sure a target is focused elsewhere, always retreating before drawing too much attention. Eddie quickly changes position, trying to come up with a strategy to take down Arshit. He is keenly aware he is the only one left standing in his team, so he pulls out something Victor had handed him earlier, something the commander said will guarantee him victory. Arshit's eyes dart around looking for Eddie when he spots long blonde hair hiding by the bushes. He thinks it's a woman lost in the woods and quickly swoops down to talk to her, and immediately drops his guard down. Once he is close enough, the girl turns to face him and points a gun at him. Then, she removes her blonde hair, revealing to be Eddie all along. He then takes advantage of Arshit's shock by shooting him. Meanwhile, Clarissa and the girls lounge in the shade of their balcony at a nearby hotel, sipping cool refreshments and enjoying the breeze. The afternoon sun beats down on the training grounds, but they remain comfortably settled, chatting idly about the competition and the knights they find most interesting. Back on the field, the knights are busy preparing for the next event, a scavenger hunt. The rules are simple. Each participant draws a piece of paper from a box, and written on it is an item they must find and retrieve. Once everyone has drawn, a signal is given. The competitors unfold their papers and scan the words quickly. Confusion spreads as they realize what they're looking for isn't an object, it's a person. At the moment, Sophia is calmly organizing first aid supplies where she hears the thunder of running footsteps. She looks up, startled to find a wave of knights charging toward her from across the field. Her heart skips a beat. She doesn't understand why they're coming for her, but she immediately decides it's best not to stand still and find out. She tries to make a run for it, but suddenly, Louis appears at her side. Without pause, he tells her to follow him. Trusting him completely, Sophia nods and runs alongside him. Together, they navigate through the chaos until they cross the designated finish line. A whistle blows, signaling that Louis has brought her first, and it's up to the commander to decide if he had brought the correct item, or in this case, person. After a pause, Lewis is declared the winner. Lewis, a bit flushed and apologetic, admits he should have explained earlier. Sophia, however, doesn't seem upset, only curious. She asks what his paper had said, but Lewis avoids her gaze, his cheeks turning a deeper shade of red. Seeing his reaction, Sophia assumes it must have described a strong person or a violent person. Back at the hotel, Clarissa suggests heading down to watch the next round. Irenia pauses, narrowing her eyes as she spots something unusual on the roof. On the training grounds, Eddie and Isaac compare scores. They're neck and neck, and both are eager to see which squad will win. Their discussion is cut short when Ernst receives a sudden message. His expression hardens. Ernst raises his voice, announcing that a landslide has occurred nearby, affecting a hotel along the coast. Several civilians are injured and some are stranded in the ocean. Without hesitation, he commands all squads to mobilize for emergency rescue. The knights race to the scene and Victor arrives first and quickly assesses the area. He barks out orders with precision, organizing the squads and warning that another landslide could happen at any moment. Archant leads his team in gathering supplies and setting up a treatment station for the wounded. The maritime squad prepares to dive into the ocean, but a hotel staff member stops them. Poisonous fish have entered the waters. Shin steps forward without hesitation. He orders Gilbert to prepare for a timed rescue and then dives in himself. Activating his ability, Shin emits a shockwave underwater, stunning the dangerous fish just long enough to create a window for rescue. Exactly 1 minute later, Gilbert and the rest of the maritime squad enter the water, beginning their mission to save the civilians who had ended up in the ocean. As the rescue efforts continue, Sophia scans the growing crowd for familiar faces. She quickly spots Irene and the rest of Clarissa's group, but something feels off. Clarissa is missing. Moments later, she hears a distant, unmistakable voice calling out for help. Her eyes dart toward the ocean, and to her horror, she sees Clarissa clinging to an upside-down umbrella, floating precariously in the waves. Despite not being a strong swimmer, Sophia doesn't hesitate. She launches into action, leaping from one piece of floating debris to another, using every stable surface she can find to close the distance between her and Clarissa. When she finally reaches Clarissa, the currents push hard against them, making it difficult to secure her. Sophia grabs onto the umbrella and with a sudden burst of strength, lifts her high into the air. Clarissa clings to the umbrella, still in shock but unharmed. Just as Sophia begins to lose balance on the drifting wood beneath her, she feels it tilt dangerously, but before she falls, the wood stabilizes. She glances down and sees Gilbert bracing one end, a grin on his face. He tells her she should have more faith in his capabilities. Then he mounts across the way. Lewis is there, steadying the other side. Gilbert gives Lewis a rare smile, praising his strength and speed. Lewis, both surprised and relieved, accepts the praise with quiet gratitude. Later that evening, all the knights return to headquarters. Ernst commends their swift actions during the crisis and hosts a grand feast in their honor. Rescued civilians and knights alike gather around tables, enjoying food and laughter. In the middle of the celebration, Victor finds Sophia and formally invites her to join his squad when she officially becomes a knight. Archant, not missing a beat, swoops in and insists that he call dibs on her first. Shin soon approaches, adding his own offer to the mix, even teasing that having a gorilla on his maritime team might not be such a bad thing after all. Later, as the party winds down, Sophia tries to quietly retreat to her room but spots Lewis nearby. She walks over, shyly asking again what had been written on his scavenger hunt paper. This time, Louis answers. He had been told to find the person he most wants to protect. Sophia tries to downplay it, reminding him that he's already done plenty to protect her. But Louis gently kisses her hand and promises to continue doing so. Before she can respond, Eddie and Isaac appear, Isaac, as usual, oblivious to the moment. Just then, a firework bursts in the sky. The four of them fall silent, gazing upward as colors bloom across the night. Amidst everything, Lewis and Sophia's hands begin to touch. One quiet afternoon, Lewis and Sophia meet after her training. Lewis immediately notices she's still in her school uniform, a clear sign that training ran longer than expected and she hasn't had the chance to return to her dorm. He suggests they find her something more casual to wear, subtly noting that their uniforms might draw attention, especially since they're from a school reserved for nobles. Sophia, however, suspects a different reason. She wonders if he's worried about being seen by other students who might try to separate them. Lewis then shyly admits that he'd like to hold her hand, only to retract the statement a moment later, clearly flustered. His embarrassment doesn't last long. Sophia finds his honesty endearing and tells him she'd like that too. Since the start of the training camp, they barely had time to themselves, so she's happy to share this moment with him. Reassured by her response, Lewis grows more confident. With a soft smile, he tells her he'd like to give her a gift to commemorate their first real date. Meanwhile, back at the Knights' headquarters, a report reaches Ernst. A duke had just been shot by an unknown assailant. The report is brief, but its implications are troubling. Back in town, Lewis and Sophia visit a quaint dress shop. Sophia tries on several outfits while Lewis waits nearby, doing his best to remain composed. Each new outfit flusters him more than the last. Sophia looks effortlessly beautiful in everything she wears, making it hard for him to decide on just one. Finally, she steps out in a soft, simple dress that fits her perfectly. Louis' reaction is different this time. His gaze lingers, full of quiet admiration. This one, he thinks, feels just right. Not too flashy, not too overwhelming, just her. Sophia picks up on his change in demeanor and smiles. They decide on that dress, and once outside, she thanks him warmly for the gift. It's easy to wear, looks lovely, and more importantly, she feels comfortable in it. With their shyness melting away, they finally reach out to hold each other's hands and continue their date. Their next stop is the familiar hairdresser's shop, the same one Louis had brought her to before. The stylist arranges Sophia's hair into a delicate braid that complements her new outfit. While working, he scolds her for not taking better care of her appearance, claiming it's a waste for someone so pretty to put in so little effort. Sophia chuckles nervously, admitting someone else had told her the same thing once, thinking of Eddie, who once styled her hair before a party. Louis quietly watches their exchange, smiling. He's pleased to see her relax and more determined than ever to make this date special. They visit a bakery afterward, sampling cakes that leave Louis visibly delighted. Then, with ice cream in hand, they head to a scenic lake viewing deck. The soft breeze, the reflection of the water, and the quiet between them feel peaceful. Curious, Sophia asks about Louis' home life. He tells her he lives alone now. His relatives once stayed with him, but over time, seeing he could manage things on his own, they left the house in his care. Before the conversation trails off, Louis gently offers to take her to his home if they still have time after the date. Sophia freezes at Louis' unexpected offer, her mind instantly racing with possibilities she isn't quite ready for. Her eyes widen in panic, clearly caught off guard by the suggestion of going to his house. Louis quickly notices her reaction and gently reassures her. He tells her there's no pressure, she's completely free to decline. He simply thought it would be nice to share a quiet, private dinner together, nothing more. Realizing she had let her imagination spiral, Sophia blushes in embarrassment. At the mention of dinner, she relaxes slightly and agrees to the plan. Louis smiles warmly at her response and suggests they head to the local market to pick up ingredients for the meal. Elsewhere, the mood is far less serene. The Knight commanders are on high alert, investigating the scene where the Duke was attacked. There's a collective sigh of relief upon learning that the Duke survived the gunshot, albeit narrowly. But the circumstances surrounding the incident are troubling. Someone had the audacity to pull off such a bold move in broad daylight. Evidence points to the culprits being affiliated with the anti-monarchist group known as Daybreak, identified by the signature red that each attacker wore. At headquarters, Ernst and Victor discuss their next move. The group's actions have escalated beyond harmless protest. This was a deliberate, calculated attempt to undermine the nobility. They agree that Daybreak must be dismantled swiftly and quietly before news of the attack spreads and causes unrest among the nobles. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting warm amber light across the town, Sophia and Louis arrive at the bustling market. For Sophia, the sight is nothing short of magical. She'd heard of this place in passing but never had the chance to visit until now. Her eyes light up when she spots a stall full of bright red tomatoes. She stares at them, utterly enchanted by their color and freshness. Louis, noticing her reaction, smiles and suggests they make a tomato-based dish for dinner. Sophia nods enthusiastically, excited by the idea. As they continue strolling through the market, arms full of ingredients, they pass by some women chatting nearby. Their voices carry just enough for Sophia and Louis to catch snippets of their conversation, bitterness toward the nobility, complaints about how nobles always receive better blessings than commoners. The words sting, especially for Louis. His expression dims slightly, reminded of the very real divide that exists in their kingdom. Not just their kingdom, but the entire world. Louis reflects on the deep-rooted hierarchy that governs their society, feeling the weight of powerlessness. Though his heart longs for fairness, for a future where titles and lineage don't determine worth, he knows that as a junior knight there is little he can do for now. Their walk through the market is interrupted when a vendor calls out to them, offering a pouch of roasted nuts. Sophia notices the flicker of interest in Louis' eyes and quickly steps forward to make the purchase. Eventually, the two make their way to Louis' home. It is in a manor, but the house looks big from where Sophia is standing. As they approach the door, Louis suddenly realizes that he forgot to restock the spices needed for dinner. With a brief apology, he places the grocery bag in Sophia's arms and hands her a key to the house. He tells her to wait inside while he heads back to the market and casually mentions that the key is now hers. Sophia is stunned by the statement, her heart thudding as she stares at the key in her palm. After a moment of standing frozen at the doorstep, she finally unlocks the door and steps inside. The interior is warm and inviting, filled with quiet details that reflect Louis' presence in the house. She finds the kitchen tucked at the back and begins unpacking the groceries, moving with calm curiosity as she familiarizes herself with the space. Not long after, Louis returns, breathless from navigating the evening market. He steps into the kitchen to find Sophia already preparing dinner, the smell of simmering stew filling the room. She turns to greet him, the expression on her face soft and welcoming. He makes his way toward her, drawn in by the sight. As he watches her stir the pot with focused care, a warm sensation spreads through his chest. When he compliments her skills, she explains that it's part of her training to better control her strength. She offers him a spoonful of the dish, wanting to know if it suits his taste, but quickly realizes the move is too bold and familiar. To her surprise, Louis gently steadies her hand as he tastes the food, clearly moved by the moment. They eventually set the table together, sharing a quiet dinner surrounded by the soft glow of the evening. The food is simple but delicious, and Louis clearly enjoys every bite. Afterward, they clean the kitchen side by side. Once everything is tidied, they retreat to the living room and settle onto the couch. Sophia absently reaches for the necklace resting against her collarbone and fondly studies it. Louis notices and takes a seat beside her, his gaze lingering on the jewelry. She admits that she wears it often, only ever taking it off during missions to keep it safe. Shyly, Sophia admits that she never wants to part with the necklace around her neck. It's the very first gift Louis ever gave her, and because of that, it's precious beyond words. Louis is visibly moved by her sincerity. Without a word, he wraps an arm around her waist and gently pulls her into a firm embrace. He thanks her, then he finally confesses the uncertainty that's been lingering in his heart. He hadn't known the best way to make her happy. The only way he ever learned to express his love was through gestures, through quiet offerings like gifts and acts of service. Hearing this, Sophia's arms tighten around him, offering the comfort she knows he needs. With all of her heart, she reassures him that he doesn't need to try so hard. Being with him, being loved by him, is more than enough. That alone is its own gift. Her gaze is steady, glowing with certainty as she affirms her feelings. Touched beyond words, Louis gently cups her face, his thumbs lightly brushing her cheeks. Then slowly he leans in and kisses her. The kiss is soft, brief, but overflowing with unspoken emotions, affection, gratitude, and a bond that has only grown stronger with time. When they part, Louis lingers for just a moment, his eyes dropping to her lips again. He leans in once more, silently asking for a second kiss, but Sophia, caught off guard, unconsciously tenses up. Louis feels the subtle change in her body and immediately stops, reading her hesitation. Instead of continuing, he offers her a fond smile and suggests they head back, gently stepping away and walking to the door, indicating it's time to return to her dorm. They begin the walk in the dim light of evening. As the campus buildings come into view, Louis gently reminds her to rest well. But before they part, he turns to her again, his expression apologetic. He softly expresses regret for earlier, concerned that he may have made her uncomfortable. The guilt hits Sophia all at once. She hadn't meant to reject him, and she certainly hadn't wanted to make him feel unwanted. She quickly reaches out and takes his hand. With a trembling voice, she admits that it's all new to her. Being in a relationship, being vulnerable, it's overwhelming at times. She's scared and unsure and often doesn't know how to act. Louis listens patiently, then cups her hand with his own. He gently assures her that there's no need to rush. They can move forward at their own pace, one that they choose together. The words bring Sophia peace, and a sense of relief washes over her as the tension in her chest fades. They arrive at the dorm gates and say their goodnights. Louis gives her one last look and a small wave before walking away. Sophia watches him go, a smile tugging at her lips. She's filled with warmth and gratitude for how understanding he always is, how careful he is with her feelings. She turns and begins to run through the garden toward her building, eager to return to her room. But then the sound, rapid footsteps. She freezes, glancing toward the walls just in time to see two cloaked and masked figures leap down and land on either side of her. The one behind her lunges first, throwing a punch that Sophia instinctively catches. The second attacker comes at her with a kick, but she blocks it effortlessly, then retaliates by hurling both assailants against the wall, knocking them unconscious. One of them drops a bottle, which rolls across the path and cracks open, releasing a strange vapor that begins to waft around her. Sophia, caught in her own thoughts and the adrenaline of the moment, doesn't notice the gas taking effect. She steadies herself, considering her next move, and suddenly, her body falters. A wave of fatigue hits her like a crashing tide. Her vision blurs, her balance slips, and before she can make sense of what's happening, another figure darts in, faster than the others. He grabs her as she stumbles, and with a strange, practiced ease, he presses his lips to hers, slipping a pill into her mouth. Sophia loses consciousness instantly. Cradling her in his arms, the masked man, Leohart, whispers to her. He tells her that in order for her light to shine the brightest, she must be by his side. Suddenly, a bomb planted at a balcony of the school goes off. After some time, Sophia finally stirs from unconsciousness. Her body feels oddly comfortable, her head resting against a pillow that isn't hers. As she opens her eyes, she quickly realizes she's in an unfamiliar room. The lighting is soft, dim yet warm, and everything around her feels calm. A sense of confusion rises in her chest as she becomes aware that her clothes have been changed. Panic flashes through her for a brief moment until she instinctively touches her neck and finds her necklace still there. The familiar presence of the gift from Lewis calms her just enough to push away the rising anxiety. She slowly sits up, trying to gather her thoughts and remember how she got there. The last memory she clearly has is Lewis walking her to her dorm gates. Everything afterwards a haze. Just then, a man steps in and Sophia blinks in confusion at his familiar face. It takes a few seconds, but then remembers Leohardt's name. Leohardt speaks softly, expressing regret for how he acted at the school event. He confesses that he had been in a terrible mood that evening, having just been dumped by Clarissa. His emotions had been frayed and he hadn't known how to carry himself. Sophia listens in silence, unsure of how to respond. Sensing her unease easing slightly, Leohardt explains that he had found her injured near the dorms and brought her here for safety. This revelation catches Sophia off guard. She tries to search her memories, but there's a blank spot. She can't recall anything after her farewell with Louis. Leohardt, still wearing his composed expression, offers her a moment to relax and suggests they have tea together while she recovers. With her outerwear apparently drying and no immediate way back, Sophia finds herself reluctantly agreeing. She's still wary, but the atmosphere of the room and Leohardt's calm tone make it difficult to refuse. He guides her to a small table and pours her a cup of green tea, which confuses her. Noticing her puzzled look, he tells her it's a special blend from the Far East. The mention of that distant land makes her how Isaac had once spoken with fascination about the Far East, curious about its warriors known as shinobi. Leohardt encourages her to try it, so Sophia takes a large gulp. The bitterness hits her tongue instantly, causing her to flinch. Leohardt laughs at her reaction and tells her to sip it slowly instead. As she adjusts to the taste, her gaze drifts across the room. Despite the lack of sunlight, the space glows softly with a golden hue. She asked about it, and Leohardt explains that the room was designed to always feel ambient regardless of the time of day. He gestures to a pendant hanging from a bottle on a nearby table and picks it up, noting that it plays a role in maintaining the glow. Leohardt then shares a glimpse of his past. He tells her he once lived in the far corner of the royal capital, where life was harsh. He and several other children survived together in the slums. Among them was a boy named Cecil, someone Leohardt had deeply cared about. He recalls how one morning, after yet another week without aid from nobles, he decided to search for food. Cecil had run after him since he had forgotten his sack for gathering. Their other friends, Lloyd and Keith, had asked them to play, but were gently turned away as Leohardt focused on the more urgent task. He'd walked for hours to reach a spot where nobles occasionally threw food for the poor. That day, he managed to catch a notable number of bread and fruit, determined to bring them back for everyone. When Leohardt returned to the slums with a handful of bread and fruits he had managed to catch, the children he lived with all rushed to him in excitement. Their eyes sparkled with delight as they rummaged through the food, their hunger briefly forgotten in the joy of his success. Lloyd and Keith, still full of energy, wandered off again to play, but Cecil stayed behind and thanked him for gathering so much for them that day. His words were sincere, and Leohardt could feel the warmth of his gratitude settle deep in his chest. That evening, after everyone had eaten, Leohardt climbed to the roof of their small shack with a worn-out book in hand. Cecil soon climbed up beside him and noticed that the book was about politics. He praised Leohardt for being able to read something so complicated, but Leohardt only frowned. He noted that parts of the book had been ruined by mold and time, telling Cecil that several words were missing and others were unreadable. Cecil, however, only grinned and said that it was fine. He added that Leohardt was smart enough to imagine what was supposed to be in the missing pages. The next morning, they all woke up early to catch the sunrise. Each boy held an empty glass bottle or a small piece of broken glass, holding them up to the sky to catch the sunlight. When the rays hit the glass, they shimmered. The sight made their own eyes light in wonder and amazement, and Leohardt, moved by their joy, suggested they collect bottles and decorate their home with them so that they could enjoy the gleam every day. One day, everything changed. A noble visited Leohardt and offered Leohardt the chance to join his household, saying that he needed someone who could connect with the commoners and help bridge the widening divide between the classes. Sensing Leohardt's hesitation, the noble instructed his men to set down crates of food in front of the children, part of Leohardt and Cecil's found family. He told Leohardt that if he accepted the offer, they would continue receiving food weekly. Leohardt asked Cecil what he thought. Cecil replied that the offer was too good to pass up, not just because of the food, but because Leohardt would finally have access to all the books he ever dreamed of. He told Leohardt that if anyone could bring change from the inside, it would be him, and so Leohardt accepted. Soon after, he was officially adopted and granted the rare blessing of the Panther God, an agile, stealth-oriented combat gift usually reserved for elite nobles. His adoptive father was thrilled by this stroke of fortune and often praised Leohardt's potential. One day, as Leohardt buried his nose in a thick book, his new father entered the study. Noticing a broken glass bottle on the shelf, one Leohardt had brought with him from the slums, he demanded to know why it was still there. He called it trash and instructed Leohardt to dispose of it immediately, warning him to leave his past behind. Leohardt remained silent, his eyes fixed on the chipped bottle. In that moment was reminded of the sunrise mornings with Cecil and the others. A pang of guilt twisted in his chest. He realized he hadn't seen or spoken to them once since his adoption. Determined to see his old family again, Leohart approached his adoptive father and asked for permission to visit the slums. The response was immediate and cold. His father vehemently denied the request, forbidding him from ever stepping foot in his old neighborhood again. He reminded Leohart of the responsibilities he now bore, the image he had to maintain as the adopted son of nobility. That afternoon, Leohart stood quietly on the mansion's balcony, eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the city's manicured gardens and grand walls. He activated the blessing granted to him by the Panther God. With one smooth motion, he vaulted off the balcony and disappeared into the shadows of the capital, racing towards the slums he had once called home. But when he arrived, he was greeted not by the familiar chaos of people working and laughing children, but by silence. The streets were eerily empty. The buildings, once patched and leaning, were now nothing more than piles of rubble. Doors hung loose from their hinges, and soot-stained wood marked the places where fires had consumed entire homes. Panicked, Leohart shouted for anyone, his voice echoing through the abandoned alleys. A faint noise drew him toward the old food storage area. He sprinted toward it, and from the shadows, two small figures peeked out. It was Lloyd and Keith, tear-streaked, their clothes dirty and torn but alive. Overcome with emotion, Leohart ran to them, pulling both into a tight embrace. He apologized again and again for not returning sooner, his voice cracking with guilt. Between sobs, the boys recounted how strange men had come into the slums, set fire to everything, and disappeared. Leohart, with his heart already breaking, asked about Cecil, but the only response he received was more crying. His gaze dropped to the ground where a small, cracked bottle lay. It glinted faintly in the dim light. He understood then that Cecil was gone. Clutching Lloyd and Keith close, tears streamed down his face as he grieved not just for Cecil, but also for his newfound hatred towards his father. Back in the present, Leohart's expression hardens as he finishes telling Sophia his story, his voice trembling with fury. He repeats his adoptive father's cruel words about disposing of trash, implying that the recent shooting of the Duke was his own doing. Sophia's eyes widen, unease rising in her chest. Her voice shakes as she asks who he truly is. Leohart doesn't hesitate and calmly reveals that he is the leader of Daybreak, the anti-monarchist group responsible for the bombing at their school party. The name hits Sophia like a blow. It's the very organization behind the chaos and fear that night. She struggles to process what she's hearing, her thoughts racing, but Leohart keeps going, stepping closer, his eyes lit with unwavering conviction. He asks her if she sees the injustice in how their kingdom operates, how blessings, something no one chooses, determine a person's worth, their future, and their right to live in comfort. He speaks of how people born with weak blessings are discarded and condemned to struggle, while the nobility bask in luxury like untouchable gods. Then, with fierce resolve in his voice, he tells her what he believes, that everyone, regardless of class, regardless of their blessing, deserves the right to live freely and with dignity. Leohart repeats his question, his tone more pointed this time, before dropping a chilling revelation that he knows that Sophia is the one blessed by the gorilla god. Her eyes widen in alarm. Only a select few are aware of the true nature of her blessing. Before she can respond, Leohart suddenly vanishes from view and reappears behind her. He leans close and taunts her, asking if she knows what the natural enemy of the gorilla it is. Without waiting, he answers it himself, and he is the holder of the other rare combat blessing, the blessing of the leopard. Sophia immediately senses the danger of their positions. Without hesitation, she leaps away, landing lightly on her feet and keeping her eyes locked on him. Leohart calls their encounter fate, two holders of opposing blessings meeting, something so rare that many doubt it ever happens. The gorilla and leopard gods grant their favor to only one person at a time, and now they stand face to face. He suddenly dashes toward her, venom in his voice, as he criticizes her for sullying herself with someone bearing a lowly squirrel blessing. His blow is swift, knocking the ruby pendant Lewis gave her clean off her neck. Appearing behind her once more, he clasps his own pendant around her neck, declaring that he will deal with Lewis himself, and that Sophia, by right of power and destiny, should stand at his side to right the kingdom's wrongs. As he steps forward to reveal the rest of his plan, he pauses. Sophia is trembling, but not in fear. Her fists are clenched, her jaw tight with rage. Suddenly, she slams her fist into the floor, using her brute strength to fracture the ground and create a smokescreen of debris. Outside the castle-like structure, Sophia hastily changes into her uniform. She lays down the nightgown she had been wearing and removes Leohart's pendant from around her neck, placing it neatly on top of the clothes. She grips tightly onto the ruby pendant Lewis had given her. With no time to spare, she races toward Durentium, praying she can make it in time to stop Leohart's plan. Meanwhile, Lewis is receiving a debriefing about the recent bomb incident. His expression is hard and unreadable as he listens carefully as he gets a deployment assignment to Durentium. Lewis sneaks around the campus, which has been completely overtaken by the anti-monarchist group. Unfortunately, two of the members spot him and immediately try to stop him, but Lewis is able to block and evade all of their attacks with ease. After knocking them out, he realizes he needs to proceed with caution as there might be more bombs planted around the school. Meanwhile, Shin is inspecting the museum where the bomb exploded. A knight informs him that they were unable to get in touch with their units and Diren to him, prompting Shin to make the decision to lead a squad there himself. Once the soldier leaves, Shin notices members of Daybreak lurking nearby and calmly uses his ability to paralyze them in their tracks. Back at campus, Lewis manages to reach the headmaster's office and unties him. He tries to find out if the headmaster has any clues about the whereabouts of the other students and teachers, but the headmaster apologizes since he hasn't seen anyone and has been trapped in his office the entire time. Lewis decides to continue searching the campus to gather more clues. Sophia also arrives at the school, her mind filled with urgency to find Lewis and the others. But as soon as she enters, a giant concrete block is thrown in her direction. She reacts quickly, destroying the rock with her strength and silently thanking her blessing for its power. As she moves through the school's halls, she notices a classroom with its door blocked by a fallen pillar. She breaks through the obstacle and finds Clarissa and the others tied up inside. They're shocked to see her, especially after witnessing her raw display of strength, but Sophia is too focused on rescuing everyone to notice their reactions. After freeing the students, she scans the surroundings, trying to decide what to do next. Araignée manages to seal off some of the entrances using her spider blessing, so Sophia instructs her classmates to stay inside where it's safer. She then tells Clarissa that she'll try exploring through the attic and leaps up into the inner roof using her strength. As her eyes adjust to the dim light, she tries to formulate a plan to save the other students and meet up with Lewis. To her surprise, Clarissa and Araignée volunteer to go with her. When Clarissa reaches Sophia's position, she blushes and admits that she had been blessed by the mole god, making her particularly useful in the dark. When Sophie tries to refuse their help, the two girls insist that friends should rely on each other. Thanks to both Araignée and Clarissa's help, Sophia is able to reach and free the other classrooms. While they're still in the roof space, Clarissa notices strange movements using her abilities and alerts the group. Sensing danger, Sophia tells the girls to return to the classroom. Before leaving, Araignée hands Sophia a rope made from her webbing as a precaution, and Clarissa makes her promise to return to them safely. Isaac and Eddie are running from members of Daybreak when Sophia enters through the roof, effectively stopping the terrorists from pursuing them. Both boys are relieved to see her and thank her for the sudden rescue. It's only then that Sophia realizes she has knocked out 2 more members of Daybreak upon entry. Eddie quickly explains what he knows about the current situation, with Isaac adding that several night squads are already stationed in different areas of the school. Moving toward the nearest window, the 3 of them witness Victor single-handedly taking down a group of terrorists below. Seizing the moment, Sophia asks if they've seen Lewis. Eddie replies that he's been inside the school ahead of them, and the last they saw him was when he ran toward the cathedral. Eddie suggests that the 3 of them should regroup with him. However, he pauses when he sees the concern on Sophie's face. Gently, he reassures her that Lewis will be fine, which puts her somewhat at ease. At the cathedral, however, Lewis lies unconscious and badly beaten on the ground. Eddie tells Isaac and Sophia that the fastest way to the cathedral is by crossing the rooftops. As they reach the roof, Sophia becomes worried about Isaac, remembering his fear of heights. Before she can say anything, a bullet suddenly whizzes past them. Eddie realizes that snipers are positioned nearby. He quickly leads the group to cover, only to see one of the snipers has superhuman strength. The man lifts a concrete block and hurls it toward them, but Sophia leaps forward and manages to catch it, throwing it back at the snipers. The force causes them to scatter, though some begin charging toward their location. Sophia turns to check on her companions but sees Eddie falling through a collapsed part of the roof with a group of snipers. Isaac urges Sophia to keep moving, insisting that Eddie can handle himself and they need to reach Lewis. As they run, the man with superhuman strength appears once again, this time preparing to throw the massive school bell at them. Sophia quickly instructs Isaac to run ahead while she handles it. The moment the bell is launched, she jumps into action and catches it midair. But the immense weight proves too much, and though she slows it down, the impact creates a crater beneath her feet. She can't absorb all the force, and the ground gives way. The bell crashes through the roof with a deafening clang, taking Sophia with it. When the dust settles, she finds herself inside the cathedral. Her eyes immediately fall on Lewis, unconscious beneath Leohard's heel as he lounges confidently on a throne, watching her with amusement. Leohard greets Sophia with a smug smile and compliments her strength and arrival, but Sophia immediately demands that he release Lewis. Leohard glances down at Lewis, remarking that he got exactly what he deserved. As if on cue, Lloyd and Keith close in, surrounding Sophia from both sides. Lloyd is quick to insult Sophia and even prepares to deliver the first attack. But before either of them can strike, a voice rings out from above. Isaac, overcoming his fear of heights, drops from the ceiling and lands beside Sophia. Without hesitation, he kicks Lloyd away. Seizing the opening, Sophia quickly takes down the distracted Keith. For a brief moment, Sophia and Isaac allow themselves to feel relieved since they're safe, and Isaac explains how Araignée's rope had helped him come down from the hole in the roof. However, the moment is short-lived. Leohart begins to move again, drawing their attention back to the gravity of the situation. With a swift blow, he punches Isaac and sends him crashing against the wall. Then he appears behind Sophia in a blur, once again using his speed to corner her. He speaks softly, trying to convince her again that she belongs by his side since she is the only other person alive who carries a combat blessing as rare as his. Sophia quickly refuses and attempts to throw a punch, but Leohart vanishes from her sight each time she swings, easily avoiding her attacks. Undeterred, he continues his plea, insisting that they should use their blessings to overthrow the kingdom's corrupt system. He tells her that she too was forced into the role of junior knight the moment the monarchy discovered she was blessed by the gorilla god, and like her, he understands her perfectly. His words stun Sophia. Leohart takes advantage of her hesitation, firmly flicking her forehead, causing her to stumble back, then catching her before she falls. His voice softens. He assures her that he doesn't want her to fight if she doesn't wish to. If Sophia agrees to become his lover, he promises to protect her and give her the freedom she deserves. Then, to seal his vow, he leans in and kisses her. But Sophia refuses to be swayed. She bites him, drawing blood and forcing him to let go. Leohart stumbles back, clutching his mouth. Sophia stands tall and tells him that she once hated being blessed by the gorilla god. But over time, she realized that her power has helped others, and that it has allowed her to protect those she cares about. Even if she dislikes battle, she now knows her strength has meaning. Leohart's expression darkens with disappointment. In a flash, he channels his strength and sends Sophia crashing into the wall. As he approaches her, he warns that she won't join him, and he has no choice but to kill her and wait for the next person blessed by the gorilla god to be born. He wraps his hand around her throat, choking her. His voice is filled with grief and obsession as he admits he never wanted it to end like this. He promises that when she is reborn, he'll claim her before anyone else has the chance. Just as Sophia begins to lose consciousness, a sword whistles through the air, slicing between them and forcing Leohart to jump back. Lewis puts himself between them and points his blade directly at Leohart. He demands that Leohart never touch Sophia again and instructs Sophia to escape. Lewis swings his blade at Leohart, but Leohart effortlessly evades the strike and mocks Lewis' efforts. As he attempts to stomp on him, Lewis raises his sword and blocks the heel with all his strength. With a burst of power, Lewis wounds Leohart, declaring that he is Sophia's knight and that he will protect her no matter what. Grimacing, Leohart grabs Lewis by the neck and throws him across the room. He turns towards Sophia, preparing to strike, but a bullet suddenly whistles past. He and Sophia look up to see Arshan, his squad, and Eddie in the air, weapons ready. Arshan announces that all hostages have been rescued and the chapel is surrounded. He gives Leohart the opportunity to turn himself in. When Leohart shows no sign of surrendering, Arshan gives the order to open fire. But Leohart activates his blessing, using his claws to deflect the bullets with blinding speed. Sophia searches the area for Lewis but can't find him, but she sees a small squirrel scurrying up toward the chandelier. She quickly realizes it's Lewis in his animal form and guesses he has a plan. Trusting him, she stands tall and announces to everyone that she will take Leohart down herself. Arshan halts his squad's fire as Sophia and Leohart face off. The battle is fierce, though they seem evenly matched in strength. Leohart's speed and combat experience gradually give him the advantage. Backing off momentarily, Leohart tries once again to convince Sophia to join him. But Sophia shouts out her resolve to protect everyone. She summons every ounce of her strength and lands a powerful punch that connects and sends Leohart flying backward. At that moment, Lewis severs the chandelier's chain. It comes crashing down on Leohart with a thunderous impact. Dust fills the air as everyone watches in silence, waiting. As the dust settles, Sophia gently holds Lewis' squirrel form in her palms and thanks him. The knights rush in and take Leohart into custody. After everyone is patched up, Lewis, now back in his human form, formally announces the arrest statement of Leohart, the leader of Daybreak. Leohart's gaze shifts toward the discarded glass pendant lying in the rubble. Sophia later wakes up in the royal hospital, greeted by Isaac and Eddie. The three of them share a moment of relief and joy, grateful to have survived despite how hopeless things had seemed. Eddie finally confesses that he's blessed by the cat god, which is why he survived falling through the roof since cats have the ability to land on their feet. Sophia and Isaac find his blessing adorable, which flusters Eddie and makes him scold them in embarrassment. Days later, Sophia finds Lewis in the school courtyard. She congratulates him on passing the knighthood exam and graduating. Lewis smiles, thankful, and shares that he's now closer to achieving his dream. He tells her that he wants to become a grandmaster, and Sophia cheers him on with encouraging words. He adds that he still has a long way to go, especially since everyone blessed by the gorilla god has reached grandmaster status. He wants to learn why the gorilla god chose Sophia and to stand by her as an equal. Lewis then extends his hand to her, inviting her to share that goal. Sophia, without hesitation, takes his hand, declaring that her purpose is to protect others. He pulls her into a warm embrace, and together they promise to stay by each other's side. Smiling at each other, they seal that promise with a kiss. A few days later, Sophia resumes her duties as a junior knight, her heart stronger and more determined than ever. Thanks for watching. That's the complete season. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it.